All right, we're live. I am your host, GFan84, also known as TJ, and with me is.
Orange Hat Reviews. How y'all doing?
And, I'm doing good. How's everyone in the chat? Hello there. Hello Spartan. How's everyone doing? I hope you're doing good. So today's show, we're going to be talking about movies first, and then give you a bit more history, not history of movies, but historical actual facts. But first and foremost, what we're going to talk about right now is if you don't remember or weren't there, yesterday Orange Hat hosted a Underworld appreciation thread. And so I'm going to sort of continue that. We skipped over three because the other person with us never saw it, so we didn't want to spoil it for them. So we're going to talk about that now, which is Underworld 3. But warning, spoilers, we are going to be talking about the movie and in its entirety. So if you
We're gonna
haven't
spoil the
seen it,
shit out of it.
yeah, yeah, if you haven't seen it or want to, this is your warning. We are doing spoilers, so you've been warned. And here we go. So Underworld 3 is actually a prequel movie, and it actually shows how Victor became enslaved the Lycans. So the movie begins where they have it's like medieval times. They have one of William's um, spawn there. It's imprisoned. All of a sudden, one of the guards hears a baby cry. He hurries up, gets Victor. Here you find a human baby in the chamber. So the woman who got turned into a werewolf must have been pregnant at the time, but the baby is actually in human form. Victor then kills the werewolf, and he's about to kill the baby. And the narration goes that every inch of him wanted to kill him, but instead he had the idea of making immortal slaves, pretty much. And so he takes Lucian, trains him. He looks at his potential. Like he's got fast reflexes. He can pretty much, as even a child, he could take on armed guards. And yet, every time when the full moon came, he would have the need to feed. So what they end up doing is using Lucian to infect or turn other people into Lycans, and then they would enslave them. The way they enslaved them was they put these collars around their neck, and they had
silver right against
spikes.
the neck, so they couldn't change.
Yes, because if they would change, it would just puncture right into their neck and kill them, essentially.
Actually, or if they tried to change, which they establish in Underworld 1, if they try to change and silver is infused into them, it can stop the change.
Yeah, it can stop the change.
It could kill them if they try to force it, but if they're new Lycans, so to speak, they know not to change and whatnot, but they also know that if they do, the silver in the spikes will actually stop their change.
Yes. And so then
it was
fast
pretty
forward,
ingenious, if you ask me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now, the only question I had was if they couldn't control their power yet when the full moon comes, I'm guessing they would have to remove the collars just for a short time, or else they would
remove.
That would be a forced change. Yeah, that's a forced change.
Yeah.
Especially for the newer ones who couldn't control their fury.
You couldn't control their change.
Yes. And when Lucian's a kid, he looks up and sees Victor, and Victor has his daughter there, Sonia, and they look at each other, and Victor asks, "Should we make more of them?" And that's where the idea comes. They become the daylight guardians of vampires, but they're also their slaves at the same time. Fast forward, the movie progresses. Lucian, now a man, and same with Sonia. She's actually one of the death dealers, and
a council member.
Yes, and a council member, which again, she's very much like Celine. She doesn't want to have to do the royal duties at all. She wants to actually be out there, you know,
Kicking ass
fight.
and taking names.
Yeah, and also protecting caravans. Now, during this time, it's explained that they use the mortals still. The mortals pay tribute to Victor and the rest of the coven for protection against the werewolves, but because of how numerous uh, there are, a lot of times they can't protect them, as you see in the uh, in some of the scenes. So it's it's kind of interesting. There's a bit more dialogue, um, and
They covered the lore a little bit
yeah.
because, sorry to interject.
Oh no, go ahead.
The thing that they talk about during the council is William's pestilence is what they call it. All of the wolves that have or that were bitten by and turned by William and his spawn, they have been unchecked. They haven't been reined in, and they have gotten too out of control for the death dealers. And so, yeah, even though Victor is bleeding the humans and the nobles dry and whatnot, he's actually supposed to be protecting those lands as well.
Yeah.
So, because he has, or one noble actually challenged him. Yes. Janosch was his name. Yep. And he's like, "You've all but bled me dry already. He's like, my mines have been overrun. The workers are turned to beast." And he's like, "That's unfortunate and costly. I think half the rights to your mines will cover the expenses." And he's like, "What expenses? You've all but bled me dry already." It's and then he just outs Victor basically in a room full of vampires. It's like, but he's basically talking to the nobles and shit. But the nobles basically, you could tell that they have an idea that they're not human,
normal,
or that they're not normal.
Yeah, and I love how he uses the words, "You all but bled me dry," and like poor choice of words right there. But you know.
Yeah, it's like you're saying that to a vampire, dude. Yeah. But you can also tell that Victor's getting really pissed off because you can you can see the subtle ticks with Victor, how his eyes squint, how his face ticks and whatnot. And he's like, "They are no different than the devils that were in." That's when Victor basically has enough. "If devils you call us, rest assured, better the devil you know."
Yeah.
And the guy literally still has defiance in him. "Unhand me!" Certainly. Yeah. Throws him right into the wall, and it's like,
kills him.
Oh, shit.
And
so,
that's,
does anybody else want to be heard?
Yeah, and exactly. And again, Bill Nye, tremendous actor, especially when he's not even talking. Like, all his mannerisms, you know exactly what he's feeling, how he, what he's thinking, just by the mannerisms, and it's just great. And he really did well with this character, especially in the third one, because it gives a bit more context between him and Lucian, especially because Lucian at first, kind of
he was loyal,
and he wants to be like them. He wants that regal status. He wants that, and especially
he's actually craving Victor's approval.
Yeah, like a father's approval kind of thing. And what then complicates things, as we know, Lucian and Sonia are secretly seeing each other, and it as it's said in the first one, he feels that also, if Sonia and him would unite, they could, unite both clans, become stronger, that kind of thing. But they kind of have to do this in secret. Now, the one person who does know about them is Tanis, because he's like the smart one. But he's just as devilish. You can ask him, it's like, "Why haven't you said anything?" It's like, I'm biding my time. It's like
Yeah,
almost like
he
he wants to see.
basically, well, he does want, he kind of does want to see how it transpires, but he also, or because Sonya actually confronts him and
Yep.
puts a knife to his throat and whatnot, and he's like, "What have you told my father? What have you told my father? Nothing. Why?" And he's like, "Would your father welcome the man who have brought him news that his beloved daughter was consulting or consorting with a
Yeah.
Lycan?
Yeah.
He's not
Yeah. Yeah.
known for his gratitude,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
am not yet in a position to use this for my benefit."
Right.
And that is how you can tell that Tanis, even though he's the chronicler and the historian, he has lofty ambitions.
Yes. And especially when he
But you
gives.
could also tell, yeah,
And then we get another scene. One of the nobles is on their way to meet Victor. This is immortal, and Sonya's with them, and they get ambushed by the werewolves, which are William's pestilence.
yeah.
Lucian then
And that
goes.
was when, yep,
Well,
he
also Lucian
goes
gets the
out
key.
in defiance.
Yeah, and he also gets the key from.
He made that
Pirate.
key. That was the key that he made.
Yeah, that's the key he made. Because if not, he would have the collar still on. And as we also get reintroduced to Reyes. And he actually defends himself, even in regular human form, from the werewolves, which is, I mean, he's a big guy, so he's like able to at least defend himself for a little bit.
Yeah,
and
he actually fought hand to hand with him.
Yeah, and the werewolves are closing in. There's a lot of them. There's more and more. The death dealers are all but Lucian comes in, removes the collar, turns into a Lycan, and does this big roar, and they listen to him.
Calling. Yep. Yeah. They back away and they start to leave.
Yeah.
Because they're cowed at this moment.
Yeah.
They're like, what the hell? This human is one of us, but he's also one of that. What the?
Yeah.
We're this is too freaking weird for us, man. We are out.
Yeah.
But it also cost him too.
Yes, because right away he gets shot with the arrows by Victor, and instead of rewarding Lucian because he saved his daughter, he gets flogged. I mean, he gets whipped.
Oh, and and it's not just a normal whip.
No,
it's the one death dealer that
Soren.
No, it's not Soren. It was a death dealer that was whipping another Lycan while they were working.
Yeah. The jailer.
And he's like, "No rest, dog." And Lucian stood up to him and said, "That's enough." And he's like, "You dare raise a hand to me?" And he pulls a sword. He's like, "I said that's enough." So says the master's dog.
Right.
You won't always be his favorite, and when you fall, I will be there. And he was the one that whips him. He's like, and he goes right up to him, letting him know that he is absolutely awash with awesome or with glory, because he's like, I told you I'd be there when you fell. And oh man, he was cleaving into. I mean, after that was done, it's like, holy shit, man.
Now, I like how the one member of the coven says to Victor, it's like, is this wise to do this in front of the other Lycans, because they're worried about a revolt? And Victor pretty much pays him no mind, saying, hey, I only counted 4 whips, continue, or whatever it was.
He tells him, he's like, let them stir, or it'll show us which ones we need to deal with and whatnot. And he also noticed it, or even though he tells his daughter to hold her tongue out in the woods, Victor is not stupid. He does not ignore her. He pays attention to things. And he actually, after Lucian is fully punished and thrown in prison, or basically thrown in prison, he confronts his daughter. He's like, your concern for Lucian was most touching. And he's like, he had just saved my life. Wasn't it you that told me to show a little gratitude. And
Right.
and you have no gratitude for the man who saved your daughter? He's like, I'm awash with it. The fact that he still breathes or reflects the depths of my magnanimity. And it's like, dude,
Wow.
that's not a positive. I mean,
No.
it's not really a positive, but hey.
Yeah.
And yeah, she thinks
and then
that he'll be freed because of it, or
yes.
after the thing is over. And he's like, no, he broke one of the main rules for the Lycans, and he's going to remain in prison as a cautionary tale.
Right.
And what Mongo just said here is pretty good.
Yeah.
I love the anatomical differences between the Lycans and the pure-blooded werewolves. Indeed, because the difference, or it's one of the things that I noted and took issue with, is in Underworld Evolution, you were introduced to William, and he looks like your stereotypical werewolf, albeit a white one.
Yes.
Yes. And the ones that he bites look like normal Lycans. Except now in the third one, you realize that that his pestilence, which is actually after the introductory of the second movie,
yes,
they look different, and it's like, yeah, you guys should definitely go back and reshoot some shit, because otherwise it's just not good.
Yeah, it just doesn't. Yeah, you notice that like right away, and it's like,
yeah,
but it's almost like they wanted to do that, but they couldn't. So in the third one, they went and said, okay, yeah, these ones are different.
Yeah, they're just
Lycans
like
are. Yeah. But then we get one of my favorite scenes is the escape scene, where the Lycans are now pretty much they're done with this. They go to escape.
Yeah, because they realized that.
Yeah.
Or it was Lucian.
Mm-hmm.
He just kept on, or he saw how they were being treated down there.
Yeah.
When they get fed, you see a couple Lycans fighting. Fun fact on the casting of that one guy that Lucian grabs and says, "We are not animals." That's the guy that played William in the suit, in the suit. Yeah, that's
cool.
That's I can't remember his name. I think Brian Steele.
Yeah.
He actually the one that played William and whatnot.
Oh, that's cool.
And Ray, but yeah, when they escape, we can't forget that just before they escape, Ray's and the slaves that were brought in with him were then turned.
Yes.
And whatnot. And Lucian gives a very empowered and impassioned speech to the others. He's like, is this what you want? I have protected them, trusted them, envied them. And for what? To live like an animal? We're not animals. We can choose to be more than this. We can be slaves, or we can be Lycans.
Yes. And then
that jackass comes back and he's like, new dogs today. Let's see how they look.
Yeah.
And another fun fact, how he kills that vampire by ripping off the side of his face.
Yeah.
The one from Underworld 1 that gets killed by Victor with a punch, they use the same makeup prosthetic on that guy, on the Whipper. And it's like, holy shit, dude. They just continue to reuse all sorts of shit.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It was. And but one of my other favorite scenes is during what we see is they shoot out these ballistas that block the way. Some of the Lycans
the ballists.
And you know, some of them escape, and Lucian says to them, "I'll come back for you." You know, he knows that they won't kill them all, but he'll make sure that he comes back to them. And then as Victor's running, there's two guards, and the sun's starting to come up. He jumps into the guards, pushes them out the window with himself, and they just turn to dust. and
Yeah,
it's
they're
such a
dusted in the sun. Yeah.
yeah. And then Victor comes out. He comes out into the sunlight just enough because he's so enraged that he's willing to even come out into the sunlight for just that brief second, and then his face starts to burn.
Yeah.
And he goes back in, but he's so enraged. But at that point, he's ready to. If it wasn't becoming daylight, he would have went right after.
Oh,
him.
he would have went right after him, no doubt. Yeah. And yes. Lucian in Ultimate Defiance just stares him down like, yeah, that's right, motherfucker. I just humiliated you.
Yeah.
and
then,
it's just
yeah. So and then one of the other things that you find out is he talks to Reyes. He goes, the nobles that you were a slave to, do you remember where they lived?
Yeah.
And so they go to that place. They pretty much, you see smoke, and you see the aftermath. He actually says to the other people who were slaves to that nobleman, saying, you can have your freedom, or you can also have immortality if you wish it, if you fight with us. So he's pretty much found other slaves that were just human, and goes, hey, if you want to be immortal, join
it comes
us.
At a cost, but hey.
Yeah. But
you'll have to turn furry every month for a while.
Yes. But and then we get back to the scene, which is great. Victor then goes
the council.
Yes.
But before that, we gotta acknowledge that he had learned the truth.
Yes, that's what I'm getting to.
About Sonya.
Sonya.
And Lucian. And I can't remember exactly how he figured it out.
He bites her.
No, I know that, but I'm trying to figure out how he figured it out beforehand. Because he does put two and two together. I just can't remember exactly how.
I'm trying to remember too.
And he also goes after Tanis. He's like, Tanis, where's the key to this collar?
Yeah.
He's like, I locked it in, he's like, it was locked in the armor. And he's like, well, then how then is it open? I have no idea. Oh, I do. Kill him. He's like, wait.
Yeah.
Check the armory. There must be an explanation. He's like, show me. And Tanis is just freaking out in the armory. He's like, it has to be here. I put it here. He's like, here. He finally finds it. He's like, he must have made another one. I never doubted you. And, and then he just walks right out and is like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Because, that's how he did it. Or that's how he figured out, because he went down to Lucian's blacksmith, or the smithery, or smithy, and he found the grate that was warped.
Right.
And then he finally put two and two together, and it's like, oh shit, he confronts Sonya. He's like, did you help an escape? Of course not. Are you lying to me? And she's like, I have done many things against your will, but he is a Lycan. She's trying her damnedest to prove that she's not lying. When he's like, well, I'm sorry, my dear, but you left me no choice. Bites her, finds out that she's doing a hanky-panky on a mountaintop and whatnot, and it's like, and that's when he just freaks. He's like, I wanted to believe your lies, but, and then, oh man, it's like,
and then he goes on this rant, like, you can't believe you did that with an animal.
With an animal. The way he says it, with an animal. It's like, oh my God, man.
Flips,
And then he goes, or the council is pissed off. He's like, Lucian is sacked too. Freaking estates from Brashoff, my lord, and made off with the contents of their armory. The slaves have joined this ranks. And the other one, Coleman, the other council member, the male guy, he was the one that wanted to create the privileged class of Lycans. He was all for Lucian and whatnot.
And actually, fun fact of that's actually a very good way to keep it. It's kind of like the divide and conquer. You give one people some class, and then it more like they don't like those guys more so than they don't like
Yeah.
the actual slavers. For instance, during the best example I could give you is prior to the Civil War down in the South, there were the house servants, and then there were the field servants. The house servants were a lot of times looked at as more privileged, not necessarily true, but it made a bit of animosity between the two.
Yeah.
And so it was a way to keep them controlled, you know.
Mongo asked a question: who was the better couple, Sonya or Lucian, or Selene, or Anne Lucian, or Selene and Michael? The thing is, the way I see it, they're both equal because they both unequivocally love each other to the point where they would die for each other. And the thing is, Lucian and Sonya are actually the original couple that led to a hybrid. You still there? What's going on here?
Sorry, I had to take the phone call there.
Oh, okay. But yeah,
I saw that. Well, honestly, the movie. Well, if you wanted to go in chronological order, obviously it's Sonya and Lucian, but I think I like the Selene and the Michael one. I think that one felt very genuine. And especially from reading the first book, it like really goes into detail what Selene was thinking and what Michael was thinking. I really liked that couple.
I'm gonna have to go on to Amazon, see if I can find the book, because I'll actually order that in a heartbeat to read it.
I think it's at my parents' house.
Nice, but
do you want me to see about sending it to you? If it's still at my parents' house?
As a gift?
Yeah.
Sure, man. I'll give you my address and everything.
All right. But, yeah, you can DM me all that stuff.
I'll DM you that.
But sure. I'll see if I can find it.
But going back to the thing where he is addressing the council, and Coleman has totally flipped sides. Basically, he's like no longer for Lucian. He's like, freedom is it's more of a disease than anything else. You need to bring your pet back. He's freaking. Yeah. He's like, thank you, Coleman. The obvious escaped me. I won't have to lift a finger. Lucian will return of his own free will. I have something he wants. And that right there, there. Everybody thinks the scene later on is worse, or really shows how truly dark Victor is. But it's that scene there that shows just how devious and dark he can be, where he's literally he's willing to bait out his daughter to get Lucian back. And and obviously Lucian does come back. He gets her. Yeah. They try to escape, but Victor's ready for it. He's like, when they alert them that his daughter escaped, and she's like, of course she has.
Yep.
And it's
actually before that scene, Lucian goes into the cave where the werewolves are sleeping. Yep. He goes in, and they start to wake up. One of them comes right beside them, starts to smell him. It's like they're trying to figure out what he is, and he essentially becomes like the leader of the pack, essentially.
Yeah, because they're not just mindless animals. I mean, they truly can't go back to being human, but they still understand he is like us. Maybe he can help us, because if you pay attention to just before that scene ends, you see several of the werewolves standing upright onto 2 feet, standing up to him. and basically it's showing that they're coming to an understanding, and they will respect him.
Yes.
And you also see, or before he goes, or he then comes back, and one of the other Lycans is like, if she's deceived you, or she's like, there's no sign of her and whatnot, and he's like, if she's deceived, he just puts him right up against a tree, like 2 feet off the ground. He's like, death dealers will no doubt be on the hunt tonight, and they will undoubtedly find us, but not by her doing. And and the other guy tells him, told you not to bring it up.
It's like,
it was a cute little comedy moment there.
But then obviously he goes and they try to escape. Obviously the escape doesn't work. But during that scene then, as we find out, Sonya reveals to Victor she's pregnant with Lucian's child. But the thing is, she tells it in front of everyone. And he even said, I can't save you now. Yeah, I could have hid it. Yeah.
Yep. He's like, she's like, please call off your men for the sake of your grandchild. And it's like, oh shit, and she grabs his hand, puts it against her stomach, and you can, if you pay close attention, you can actually hear the fetal heart tones and whatnot. And she's like, a miracle father, a union of the bloodlines. And you'd think that it would be something that would be of interest to Victor. For a moment, you actually see him listening and turning his head, craning his head and whatnot. But then he yanks away in revulsion. He's like, I curse the day your mother gave her life to bring you into this world. That thing inside you is a monstrosity. And it would have been such a brilliant thing if they had added the line where she says, aren't we all?
Yes. Yeah.
But he pulls the knife on her, everything happens, and he's like, this is over. Restrain him, get him out of here. And exactly what you said. It's like, this night was never about you, it was about Lucian. And if I could have turned him over to the council and they never have learned of your discretion. But after this, you have betrayed me completely and wholly. So they get ready, or they basically lock her up, put her in slave rags and whatnot. And they then put 2 silver arrows in Lucian's back to keep him from turning and whatnot, to keep him weak. And they begin the trial. And it's like everybody, or they read off the charges. And how vote you? I. Then they turn to Victor, and even he's like, she's your daughter. But Victor, at that point, he's realizing the gravity of what his choice is going to do. You can tell because he's blinking. I. And he just mutters it, I.
And I love the reaction she has. Like, she's like, I can't believe you just said that.
You just sentenced me to death?
Yeah.
What the fuck? And you can tell that Lucian's freaking out. He's like, Victor, please, no, Victor, wait, Victor. And as everybody is leaving, what does Victor do? He lowers his head in despair because he just realized his world's crashing around him. All of the things he has cared about are about to die. And they then bring him into the famous scene from Underworld 1 from the memory flashbacks. And Lucian gets whipped in front of Sonya, and she's restrained. And they leave. She dies. And right when she burns, you can see that Victor is indeed torn up about this. He is weeping as his daughter dies. And then he goes in.
Lucian does in that scene is just so powerful. I mean, it's like you can feel he was. I mean,
Oh yeah,
yeah, I can imagine something like that.
It broke him.
Yeah. And fun fact about that scene. Did you know in the 4K re-release of the first Underworld, they replaced the flashback scenes with that?
No shit.
Yeah, in the 4K, I think it's 4K release. They replaced the scenes of the flashback with the actual parts of Underworld
Rise
3.
of the Lycans?
Yes.
Oh
to
my
make
god,
the part
I have to look for that.
Yeah. Now, interestingly enough, too, they still credit the original actress who played Sonya in the credits. They didn't change that, but they did that for more continuity.
Yeah, for better continuity and whatnot.
Yeah. Yes.
And then night falls.
Yeah.
And Victor comes in, and I just love it when he hears the tiniest jingle or clinking of chains, and he just whips right around.
Yeah.
And Lucian's trying to fight against his restraints because he has no more. There's nothing there for Victor except for hatred and rage. Yeah. And Victor just goes to his guard. Fetch my knives. It's like, what is he, a fucking dog? But it's too late because that is when, for the first time, you see Lucian push through the restraints of the silver.
Yes.
And actually burp out the silver.
Yeah.
And it was such a brilliant fucking scene.
Yeah. I love it. He grabs him and Victor does this like hissing sound.
Yeah, his snarling and whatnot.
Yeah. And he does the infamous scene, he grabs the amulet and then takes off out the window. But then you find out more context. They put those ballista arrows through him.
Yep, they use the things they used to trap William.
Yeah, and so now he's starting to revert back, but then it shows the woods where the other Lycans are, and then you hear like a lot of footsteps, a lot of pounding, and they look back, and here comes the entire
wolf pack,
like all of them, and that's when the guards are like, "We're under siege." It's like,
basically, it's like, oh fuck, because because he actually goes out to the ledge to see or to see them trying to get Lucian, and Lucian's, even as he is packed or speared through his wrists and all that stuff, it was when he got shot again with the silver thing.
Yeah,
he starts screaming, and that's when he unleashes his blood-curdling roar, which triggers the pack. It's like, our alpha is in distress. We have to help him.
Yes, exactly.
And then they hear the thing, and one of the guards goes to Victor. He's like, "My lord," and Victor's like, "Shut up." He lifts a silencing finger. He's like, "Shut the fuck up for a second."
Yeah.
Oh shit! And then all of the Lycan slaves that Reyes and the rest of them are like, well, let's get into it. This is it. We're going.
Yeah.
And you could see a couple of them turning mid-run and whatnot. It's fucking awesome. And you also get the Wilhelm scream. That kind of, I can't. I used to be able to do it perfectly, but I can't anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it, man. When everybody says it's now known as the Wilhelm scream, I'm like, was the guy who screamed named Wilhelm, or was it a movie from a guy named Wilhelm? Who did it?
Yeah.
I have to look that up.
So then the big battle ensues.
Yep, and you see the death, or you see Victor armor up and whatnot, and the Death Dealer mask of how much like a skull it looks. He has red flanges on his helmet. Kill the dogs! And he does dual wielding swords. But before he gets out there, you actually see Tanis grabbing a bunch of scrolls and shit. We have greater concerns about them than your precious scrolls. Go to the elders now. It's like,
Yeah.
fuck you, you little asshole. And he does his job. He doesn't like Victor, but he does what he's told. He gets the sarcophagus and gets him out to the ship and whatnot. But yeah,
that's the thing. And as we know from Evolution, Victor never fully trusted them either.
Yeah, he never liked Tanis. And when Tanis started writing the truth,
yes,
and stuff, Victor accused him of malicious lies.
Yeah,
and it's like, yeah, but you're not exactly helping your case. You are sort of a fucking tyrant. But anyway, then you see the John Wick focus of Lucian. He's like, Victor, and he just starts cutting his way through vampires and whatnot. And Lucian Victor then sees him, and he's like, oh shit. And then another guy gets in front of him, stops him, and Victor just takes off. You actually see for the first time, Victor flees, but it's not a flee of cowardice. It's a calculated flee.
Yes.
And he takes off his armor and whatnot. And I'm thinking, why would you take off your armor? But it doesn't make sense logically, but it does make sense behind the scenes wise, because that armor is heavy.
Yes. And for
they were not exactly young.
And they're like going at it. I like how Victor's like, you defiled my daughter. And
he's like, I loved her. You killed her. And Victor just can't understand that. No, Victor, you kind of killed her. You were unable to accept that sometimes change might be good if you allow it. If he had allowed them to be together, if he had allowed that child to exist, to unify the Pax and the Covens, there would have been no problem.
But they would have been
he was too power hungry. He was too power hungry. And I just
keep all the
power.
Yeah,
he wanted to keep it for himself. And then so then the fight happens. They work their way down into the catacomb area, where they're pulling, or where Lucian pulls the things. He then wraps him up in the chains and whatnot. And I love the line that Victor gives. I should have crushed you under my heel the day you were born. And he's like, yes, you should have. And then stabs him right through the mouth, and you hear the god-awful, blood-curdling, groaning scream. Then he leans in, but you didn't. And it's like, oh my God. He pulls it out. Now, when I actually saw the third movie, I will completely admit, full out, I actually honestly thought he had just killed Victor. And I'm like, oh, wait, Victor's alive later? This makes no sense. But then you see later on, he's on the boat, and he goes into his sarcophagus. And it's like, okay, so he is alive. It's like, how did he survive?
And the elders are a bit more adorable.
But
and then at the very end, Kraven gives his speech.
You hear right after the war is finished, he's like, no, this is just the beginning. And then he holds on to the amulet, and then they go to the whole thing where Kraven's talking to Selene. Let me tell you a little something about your Dark Father. They give a slightly abridged version. They don't give the full thing.
No,
And then it shows Selene looking up into the distance, lies, and that's it. And it was a brilliant. I mean, Patrick Tatopoulos did a good job with the movie.
Yes,
the continuity and everything was very good. It's just the inconsistency with the likeness is what I didn't like. Because each movie had a different version.
And like I was saying, that honestly, Rise of the Lycans was one of my favorite. The way I rate it is 1, 3, 2, and then 4. But I didn't see 5, so I can't really say about that one. But that's how I ranked them. It's 1, 3, 2, 4.
And 4, yeah.
Yeah.
And I can agree with that assessment.
Yeah.
Because 2, as good as and cool as it was, objectively, that movie is at best a 2.5 out of 5. And that's subjective
Right.
without bias. With
Yeah.
bias, I give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
But
And,
because of the inconsistencies is what takes a point away from
Yeah.
subjective.
yeah, and how it was kind of rushed, and
Yeah.
you could tell like they had a couple missteps, and they're so glaring, it kind of takes you out of the moment. You know what I mean? It really takes you out of the moment. It's like, oh, they could have did it a different way, But yeah. So like I said, we wanted to cover 3. That's what my goal was, to cover 3 at the beginning here. And so, one of the things that I was going to talk about is just movies in general. And one of the subjects that I was talking to Orange Chat before we went live, and one of the things that I really can't really stand with the way movies are being done now, and then where they inject politics into it. I cannot stand how they're always arguing, strong female characters, or women didn't do anything until the 21st century. Like they never achieved anything until now, which is total bullshit. It really is. And so I brought up to Orange had a bit of history here. There was a woman back during World War II. There was a woman named Maria Oktoberkanya. I'm terrible at Russian names, so I apologize if
Spell it out in the or do me a favor, spell it out in the chat.
Okay, I'll spell it out in the chat. And so
I'll be able to pronounce it then.
Yeah.
Also, unhighlight Mongo's comment so we can see a couple other things too. I mean, it's a great comment, excellent thoughts and all, but yeah.
That was actually the last. Wait, that was the last comment that got put out. So let me hide that one. Okay, so hold on.
Let's see. Because I'm actually pretty good at. Alrighty, let's see here.
Okay.
Maria.
Yeah.
Oktoberskaya. Oktoberskaya.
Oktoberskaya. Sorry. Okay.
Oktoberskaya. Oktoberskaya.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oktoberskaya. Basically, you actually need to pronounce it in a Russian or a
I'm
Slavic
terrible
dialect. Oktoberskaya.
Yes. Now,
very cool.
A bit of context with her. She came from a poor Russian family. She was one of 10 children. This is before the Second World War. She worked in a cannery, worked as a phone operator. And then in 1925, she married a Soviet officer, a military officer. And she was very interested in the military. He taught her how to shoot. She became a nurse for the army, and so on and so forth. Then World War II, Hitler invades Russia, well, the Soviet Union, and she's evacuated. Her husband then goes on to fight the Nazis. He dies in 1941, but it takes 2 years for her to find out what happened. So in 1943, then she finds out that he passed away. She is so angry at this that she actually sells everything she owns and gets 50,000 rubles, which is their currency, to buy a T-34 tank to go onto the front lines and kill the Nazis. That's how dedicated she was. Now, she wrote an actual letter to Stalin about this. And whether it reached Stalin or not, nobody's really sure. But the Ministry of Defense that reviewed it actually gave her one for free. And they actually trained her for 3 months in the tank, which was unheard of because by that point, they were training people. Literally, they would tell them to get into the tank and then start driving, and that's how they got their training. But she actually was trained for about 3 months. Her tank had the name of well, it's pretty much translated into fighting girlfriend, but that's the basic translation. So her tank was called Fighting Girlfriend, and at first the officers and even her other tank crew were thinking this was just a publicity stunt, to raise morale, yada yada yada, that kind of thing. Well, her first battle came in and proved them all wrong. Her tank was one of the first to enter the battle, and the track blew out, and she went outside under fire and fixed the track. And so, right then and there, they realized, oh, no, she's not kidding. She actually is completely dedicated to this. And they were in a few battles, and each subsequently time the track blew out. She and a couple other guys would go out under fire and repair the track and then keep on moving. However, her luck kind of ran out in January of 1944. Her track blew out again. They went to fix it, and unfortunately, an explosion happened, and shrapnel actually entered her head. She was taken to a medical hospital where she was in a coma for 2 months, and unfortunately, she passed away soon after. But, and then after she died, she actually was awarded the Hero of the Soviet Union medal, which is one of the highest medals you can get during wartime. The point of the story I'm trying to really say is there have been very strong female
women
throughout, women throughout history. You said back in the ancient Greek and the Spartans, they had to go through the same thing the men had to go through.
The Agoge.
The Agoge. So, I just don't understand, like, especially with the mentality of, in movies and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, we have to, make women look better by making men look dumb, stupid, and idiotic. It doesn't make sense to me. And also, I think you're actually hurting your own cause by doing so. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like another great fictional character, Ellen Ripley, from the Alien series.
Yep.
And especially in the second one, I mean, she just went through trauma, and she's willing to go back with these guys as an advisor, and yet she ends up being the one who, alongside the guys, and also the strong female character of Vasquez, ends up, pretty much, decimating,
kicking ass.
Yeah,
and whatnot.
And it's like, do people forget about these things? I mean, I don't understand what this mentality is, saying like only in the 21st century can we have this. It's like, no, we've had it for since time immemorial here.
I mean, even look at movies like A League of Their Own, which is actually historically, it's based on true events of the women's professional baseball.
Yes.
Those women, they had men and whatnot. They liked men. They loved men. But they were all strong women.
Yes.
They had jobs. They freaking went. I mean, the one Alice who freaking finally slid for the first time had a big damn bruise. And they took a picture of that, man. And these women went through hell in skimpy ass skirts playing professional baseball.
Yeah, and actually, I watched a documentary about that, and they actually said that it was kind of funny. The most criticism they were actually receiving was from other women, saying that they were they were like too manly. That's too manly of a sport and stuff like that. But this is during the war. Many of them had husbands that were fighting, so it was something to get them out of the house too. Or else worrying all the time. It's like you could like one lady even said, I can't remember which one it was in this documentary. She goes, "Well, I could have either sat home, worried myself into depression, or I could do this and actually have it mean something." And that's what she did. And it kind of helped too because it got people to have some sort of normalcy during the war, and that was the whole goal of it.
Yep.
Have a
And
normalcy.
I do want to touch on one thing before we move on from this. I went down to the to whatchamacallit, the Baseball Hall of Fame, Cooperstown.
Oh, okay, all right.
And
Okay.
when I was only like 8 or 9 years old. I had seen A League of Their Own when I was 7, and I went down to the base or professional or to the thing. I was in the professional women's baseball thing, and there was a woman there, an elderly woman. She's like, would you like to meet a professional women's baseball player? And I'm like, yeah, I would. That would be cool. She points to a name, Dolly Nemec. And I'm like, who's that? And she's like, that's me.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, wow. And and it's like, holy crap. I had actually just met a woman that was a part of history.
Yeah.
And even though she's not like Gina Davis's character or the other characters or whatnot, she was still part of a historical moment in our country that was, I mean, truly underappreciated. But she, and every single one of those women that were in professional women's baseball, I have massive respect for, including Nemec. And I wonder if she's actually still alive. But oh my gosh, man, when I mean, that was 28 years ago when I saw or met, not, let's see here. I was 9 when I met her.
Okay.
So that was 24 years ago. I suck at math. Alexa, what's 35 minus 9? 26 years ago. Damn it.
Yeah. But still.
5 minus 92,026 years is minus 91,991.
That's not what I said, you idiotic machine. Anyway. She just kept on going after I said 26 and whatnot. It's like, oh God, no.
But no, that's awesome.
It is, man.
Really
oh
cool.
my gosh, man.
But yeah, actually, and that was true. They all had to take also ladies' classes to make them more elegant when it came to like the press interviews and stuff like that. And most of them just hated that part. They wanted to get out and play baseball. They didn't want, again, to appease, people saying that they were, they didn't want like manly, women doing this, yada 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 yada. But and that's like how they even say that in the movie where the one girl, even though she wasn't a looker, she was a good player, and they wanted her on the team, and they wouldn't go on
Marla Hooch.
Train. Yeah, they wouldn't go onto the train unless he recruited her. It's like, it really was that was actually a thing. But no, like throughout history, I mean, I just don't understand why right now they're so focused on this kind of thing when I really think they're actually doing a disservice to women and the women that came before them. You know what I mean?
I'm actually looking up Dolly on thing. Or I'm actually trying to find her again. That's how you spell it. Dolly. Or I spelt it incorrectly. Dolly Nemec is how she pronounced it. It's Niemiec. But yeah, it's basically Oh, she passed away 2 years ago in September 2018. Sadly, but man, if she was playing for the professional women's baseball player or team in between 48, so she was 17 when she started playing. She both batted and threw right-handed and whatnot. What was the team she played on? But yeah, sadly, she was born in Chicago, Illinois, May 27th. So she lived to be 70 or 87 years old.
Oh, wow.
And she was on the Chicago Colleens in 48, Springfield Sallies 49, Grand Rapid Chicks 50, 51, and 52, and Battle Creek Bells in 51.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, when I met her, it's like, holy crap.
Yeah, that's just awesome. And that's the sad fact is, every year that passes, more and more people aren't around, for you to ask this. And it's one of the things where I wish they had more projects where they do more interviews with people. Back in the 90s, there was a couple projects they were trying to do for World War II veterans and whatnot, to try to get their stories on film and stuff like that. Ken Burns, he's the big documentary guru who did like Civil War and the War, which is World War II. He went through extensive like interviews and stuff like that. I would love to buy those collections of his because, I mean, he does an amazing job. He did one on baseball. That's the one I was talking about. And it's just like he goes above and beyond when it comes to documentaries. Like, it's not just like a couple episodes. It's like a full series of episodes. And, it's one of those things where, I really want some of those collections, but they're hard to find and they're just ridiculously expensive too. But, well, getting back to it, now, my question to you is, when it comes to movies, especially the newer movies, you and I, we're the same age, so we grew up on, movies from the 80s, the 90s, and stuff like that. And like how we were saying with Underworld, there are some things in movies back then that they could do, but you cannot do them now. And I feel that's kind of a shame, too. Because movies are really meant to be a type of escapism and not bogged down in all these politics and stuff like that. And it's just,
I agree completely there, because it's like movies are meant to escape reality.
Yes.
You go to the theaters, if you're having a stressful day, you want to catch a movie, kind of, I mean, somewhat in a way of Charlie Puth's music video, One Call Away. You go to the theaters to escape. You go to the theaters to get away from the stresses of real life. And all these movies now that are trying to portray strong women, and I do stress trying to portray strong women. There have been a couple exceptions recently, but for the most part, they're all shit. I mean, Gal Gadot is a strong female character when it comes to Wonder Woman. She is, or she has the early form of feminism where they did kind of touch on the whole inequality for women, but that was of the time of World War I. So that was kind of normal. So people can try to say, well, that was a woke moment, but it's truly not. Women were starting to want more out of it. And that was when the suffragette or the suffrage movement started. But
Yes, it did.
she was still a strong female character. It
Yeah.
wasn't big, and she didn't keep on saying it's because I'm a woman and stuff,
Right.
trying to preach that shit down your throat.
Right.
It was just her being who her character is.
Yeah.
And her
And that's
character
why
isn't a third wave feminist.
no, and that's I give hats off to Patty Jenkins, the director, and Gal Gadot for approaching it the way they have been. And even Gal Gadot has said, when interviewed, they're like, do you want, girls to look up to you? And she's like, no, I want, both girls and boys to look up to a hero. And it's like,
Mhm.
yes, that's what we, people kind of want. And it's like, it's so funny because you get some of those interviewers, they think they do these questions on purpose. And then when you don't answer the way they want you to, it's almost like they don't know what to say. Like, look
Yeah,
at
they
Harvey.
ask loaded questions.
Yeah, but like look, Harvey Cavill when he was asked about toxic fandom, and he's like, "No, I don't think they're toxic. I think they're just passionate." And it's like,
Exactly.
and right, and what's funny is the interviewer who posted that turned off the comments. So what's that tell you? It's like you knew.
Yeah,
Again, they're trying to get a certain reaction, and when it doesn't work for them, it's like, oh, well, I do now. It's like,
exactly. I mean, you even seen, or during 2019 Star Wars Celebration, the guy who did Akbar's voice in Clone Wars and the voice for him in Episode 8, he actually called out. He's like, "What was with this Holdo woman, and why did Akbar get killed like a bitch off screen?" And he didn't say killed like a bitch, but he's like, he got really truly disrespected, and the person who was interviewing him freaked out. He's like, no, you can't really talk about that. It's like, why not? Everybody else is asking that question.
Again, it's almost like they only want to interview people who are like,
who feel or who will share their narrative.
Yeah, exactly. And then when it doesn't happen, it's like, oh, I'm done with this interview, kind of thing,
Yeah.
or we'll move on. Yeah, it's like, but no, it's kind of like it just makes me wonder. It's like, isn't this not a democracy? Aren't people allowed to have different opinions?
Yeah, but that's not exactly what democracy is.
Wow.
The basic generalization of democracy is the majority rules. And the sad fact is, the woke crowd, so to speak, the woke scolds, they're not really a majority.
No, but it's like
they just think they are.
Yeah. Well, I don't. It's like I said, politics is a freaking mess of.
It's a nightmare right now. Yeah.
It just is. And I've had family members that stop talking to each other because of politics, and it's like, oh, come on, we cut this stuff out. It's like, dude. But I mean, I'm just finding it very. It's just very unfortunate that movies are falling victim to that kind of thing, and it's like, I want a movie to entertain me. Like, I'm a big Godzilla fan. I thought Godzilla King of the Monsters was a fantastic movie. Nothing was like forced down your throat. It was about giant monsters fighting each other. And it did horrible to the critics because again, I think it's because it didn't have a narrative to it. It's just these giant creatures kicking the shit out of an old Toho movie. For a second.
No, you didn't. I'm here. Yeah, the internet's picking up here. I muted my mic because I had to address somebody off screen.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
right.
the thing with Godzilla, King of the Monsters, is if you actually paid attention to some of their complaints, it was there wasn't enough human scenes. And I'm
Yeah.
like, did you watch the same movie that I did? Because if
just
you
that,
ask me, there wasn't
Yeah.
enough monsters in the freaking film.
well,
They
not just
focused
that,
too
but
much on the humans.
well, actually, that was the complaint about 2014, which was there was too many humans and not enough Godzilla. And it's like, wait, so they actually listened and put more Godzilla, and now you're complaining there's not enough humans. Again, I don't think it was they were bad about the humans. I think it's because there was no like narrative to it as far
Yeah,
as
I mean,
the woke
you
crowd.
could
It's like,
make the argument of them trying to make a climate change narrative, but
and
that
that wasn't even
or
that big.
awareness of ecosystems was always something that Toho did.
Yes, oh yeah, and considering that Godzilla was made from the atomic bomb, and then
Yeah,
that makes sense. And when it comes to the Godzilla movies, especially not necessarily the very first Godzilla movie from 1954, but when you get to the sequels and you get to the monsters fighting each other, it more turned into the spectacle. And the one nice thing is, again, it was more the escapism of watching, Godzilla. He's tearing apart these cities, but no one's getting hurt. Especially when he's more the good guy. But it's there was something just, I guess for me, there was something just so cool about those movies. Even though, yeah, it's man in the suit, even though, yeah, it's models, there was just something that had some charm to it, you know. And I think that's why the Godzilla movies have endured so long, is because of that, but also the fact that nuclear power isn't going anywhere, and it's even always stated as long as there's nuclear power, there's always going to be a Godzilla.
exactly.
Yeah,
And
it's like the ending of Shin Godzilla is the best example of that, where he's like, "What we do now?" It's like, I guess we'll just have to live with him, and they're literally talking about nuclear power. It's like
mhm,
we'll just have to live with it. We can't stop it. We have to live with it. We have to learn to coexist again. Yeah, with it. So yeah, and I really like the Godzilla King of the Monsters. Unfortunately, it's up for a Razzie Award for worst remake, which it's not really a remake, but I don't know why they put it in that
what are
category.
these Razzie Awards?
So Razzie Awards are literally are supposed to be movies that are bad. That were theoretically released, were A-listers, and were considered the worst movies. It's like the opposite of the Academy Awards. You're getting an award for being terrible.
Well, to the person who created the Razzie Awards, sit on it and twist.
Yeah.
Because Godzilla King of the Monsters, as objectively flawed as it was, is still subjectively a good movie.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And subjectively is my own opinion with bias.
Yes. And I watched it a couple times, and yeah, there's a lot of things that I do pick out about it. There's the whole arc with Emma Russell. I didn't buy the whole redemption thing. I mean, she just caused millions upon millions of deaths, and then she's trying to make good on it at the very end. No, I kind of didn't buy that. Um, and then there's some things that I take issue with. For instance, I feel that Rodan's very intelligent, and he's pretty much the toady for whoever's most powerful.
Yeah.
And he switches sides more so than uh, politics and stuff like that. But yeah, so yeah, that scene there, it bugged me for a little bit, but I kind of understood because he did try to fight Ghidorah on his own, and it's like, yeah, he just failed miserably. But you know, and it's more to show how powerful Ghidorah was. So
Yeah. I mean,
uh,
we could talk about Godzilla all night because I would love to delve into that movie. I'm gonna have to do a stream with you
oh yeah,
and
yeah,
plan to talk about Godzilla King of the Monsters. Basically, the in depth, the
yeah,
freaking mentality of the monsters and everything, man. Because oh my gosh, I would love to do that.
oh yeah, yeah. I'd love to do that too. That's like it's been done before hundreds of times, so I'm not going to do it. But I'd love to take every individual movie and do a video on it, but that would take forever. That would be like, ugh,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, because there's so many of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. I guess I'm one of the Godzilla fans, and yeah, the Godzilla fans are kind of unique. Give you a bit of insight to G fandom. That's what we call G fans. That's why my name's
Mm-hmm.
G Fan 84. What it is like there's a couple of schools of thought when it comes to Godzilla. One school of thought is, only the Toho movies are good ones. None of the other ones are good at all. Yeah, some people that only like the Showa versions, and the Heisei version sucks. Um, that there's because there's so many Godzilla movies, and because they're done so differently from each other, it's kind of hard to really narrow down where Godzilla is in the spectrum. Because when someone asks me what is Godzilla, I'm like, it's actually a multi-answer. That question has multiple answers to it because
Exactly.
it depends what movie, it depends what time frame, it depends um, which story you're going with. Because they've changed Godzilla origins hundreds of times. You know, they have
Yeah.
different series. They have the anime. They have animated series from Hanna Barbera. You have the Godzilla '98. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's a very complicated answer to a simple question.
But one simple way of answering it is Godzilla is an ideal. He
Yes.
is the embodiment of Japan's disdain yet respect for the devastation of Hiroshima and Nagasaki,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
what
Atomic power is in
nuclear power and what nuclear power means for the world.
Yes.
That
Both
is
good and
basically a way of answering that.
yeah. It's both good and bad because nuclear bombs are hydrogen bombs. They're completely devastating. I mean, it's insane the amount of power they have, and yet in terms of clean energy, nuclear power is one of the cleanest energies you can have. Ironically,
Hmm.
and we have yet to find something to even compare to that as far as clean energy. I was actually just reading a thing. More people have been killed making windmills than people killed by nuclear reactors. No joke.
Yeah.
So it's like, how it's like it's just one of those things where it's like you want to try to find other ways of making energy, but that's the pinnacle where we are right now. We have not found a new type of way to have that type of energy. I mean, we've gotten close to finding.
Yeah, the thing is, we're not going to be able to find anything more sustainable than nuclear energy until we find a way to get off fossil fuels, but that's not in our lifetime.
No, and I don't know. So going back to movies in general, what kind of movies do you really like? Do you like when it comes to, do you like adventure movies? Do you like action movies, space movies? What kind of one that you think has the best, most potential, and the ones that you seem to like the most?
Well, to be honest, it truly depends on my mood when it comes to
Mm.
movies. I mean, if I want, or it, I'll look at a list of movies and whether or not it strikes my fancy or not, I'll give it a look and such because there are chick flicks that I actually like. I mean, believe it or not, I
Oh yeah,
actually like the
yeah.
movie. I actually like the movie Warm Bodies with Nick Holt and
Oh
what's
yeah,
her name from
that,
I Am
that
Number
movie was
Four.
very. That movie was actually very unique. It was a zombie movie, and yet it was a love story. I thought that
Yeah,
was pretty unique. Um,
and then I can easily like movies like Rambo where you're blowing the shit out of people and
yeah,
whatnot. But then I can
yeah,
also go and like movies like freaking Star Wars or this and that. And I
yeah,
actually like a wide range of different genres and whatnot. I mean, I
yeah.
there's a movie or I like some of Kurt Russell's earliest movies when he was a kid. What like
Oh yeah, yeah.
the computer who wore tennis shoes and the world's strongest teen or I can't remember if
The
what it
Disney
was
movie
called, but
that they did.
yeah, they were old Disney movies, folks.
Yeah,
This was back when Disney didn't focus on things like agenda or political narrative. This was when they actually focused on telling a story. When
one of my
Walt Disney himself and his family had the hold of Disney at the time.
yeah. One of my favorite old movies of Disney was. Do you ever see The Ugly Dachshund?
The Ugly Dachshund? No.
Yeah. It's a very good movie. It's the this Great Dane thinks it's a dachshund, so it's actually a really good movie. Well, what happened was
It's a take on the
uh,
Ugly Duckling.
kind of, but what happens is this guy, his wife has these prize dachshunds. The dachshunds just had puppies, and the vet's dog, who's a Great Dane, she's not producing enough milk, so he has the Great Dane nurse from the dachshund. So of course it thinks it's a dachshund. And of course, something that big trying to fit it's a good comedy. I really like it. It has like some really good moments. Um, it was made in I think the late 50s, early 60s. Again, like the old school Disney live action movies and stuff like that. Kurt Russell was in Fox and the Hound. Also, he did the voice.
Which one did he do?
Um, I think he did the Fox, if I
Huh.
remember right. Because yeah, I remember seeing the credits. I'm like, hey, is that Kurt Russell? It's like that's Kurt Russell. But yeah, and then yeah, I like movies like Goonies. Um,
Oh yeah, I liked Goonies too.
movies from like the '80s. Those are great. I mean, Never Ending Story. Geez, I could go on and on with those ones. Um, I really like Stranger Things. If you did you see that on Netflix?
Yes, I have seen 1 through 3 or one seasons
Yeah,
1 through 3.
I,
My
I
favorite
did.
season was season I would actually say season 1 was my actual favorite of the 3 so
Yeah,
far.
yes, that was my favorite too, and it really reminded you of. I always call it the one of the best kid adventure movies never made. From the '80s, never made in the '80s. That's there were so many nuances from other '80s movies, and the sets that Mike's house looked like my old house. Like the walls were the same, the colors. It was like it was really like I really felt like that was a house from the '80s. I was convinced.
Yep.
And yeah, so yeah, for me, like yeah, I watch just about everything from movies to documentaries. I like watching documentaries once in a while. Um, you get some really good ones, and then I like some I like crime thrillers and stuff like that, comedies. Um, Knocked Up was one of my favorite comedies of recent years, and that's even an older movie. I haven't really seen that many newer comedies. I really don't care for them that much. I think that was like the last one I really liked as far as comedy goes.
Yeah. I mean, my aunt, before I even got into YouTubing and whatnot, my
Uh,
aunt, um, she told me to check out a black and white film that was coming on. And at the time I only liked one black and white film, and that was A Streetcar Named Desire. And I wasn't
okay,
really into, and when I hear, or she's like, I want you to watch Arsenic and Old Lace. And
okay,
the name didn't appeal to me.
right,
So I'm like, I don't want to really, but she's like, well, you're going to watch it because we're not going to watch anything else tonight. And I was like, all right, fine. So I sat down, I barely started paying attention, but then as I was watching it, it just started getting more hilarious. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, it
hmm
actually knocked A Streetcar Named Desire off of my number one black and white movie because I absolutely love, or don't get me wrong, A Streetcar Named Desire is always going to be or hold a special place in my heart. It was the first black and white
right,
movie I liked. But
hmm
Arsenic and Old Lace is by far my favorite black and white film. And it was just so freaking hilarious when I was watching it. I mean, they keep on making fun of the guy that looks like Boris Karloff, and it's Boris Karloff playing the guy.
yeah,
And it was just, oh my God, it was just so freaking great.
yeah. I remember I was in film class and we watched a lot of black and white films. And for the first time, I watched like movies like Citizen Kane and Casablanca, and those movies really never appealed to me. But when I watched them, I realized I'm like, now I see why these are so treasured, because there's so much that movies now copy off those. It's it's almost ridiculous because like the certain scenes and the certain cinematography and stuff like that. It's like this is what started all this stuff. If you ever get a chance, watch. I tell people this all the time. If you ever get a chance, go rent if you can, or find it on like eBay or Amazon. Find Seven Samurai. That movie is mind blowing. I probably one of my favorite black and white movies because most of it is one of the earliest action epics you can find, and it is just it's great. I mean, every part in that movie is just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
Seven Samurai is like the basis of like all the action flicks, and even George Lucas.
yeah, I was gonna
Like,
say
yeah,
that movie sounds familiar because I remember hearing George Lucas talking about how he got inspiration from it.
yes, and it's just it's a great movie, and it really does deserve the praise it gets. But the problem is a lot of people don't, unless you're like in a film school or film class. That's the only time people ever watch it. But I always tell people it's like, go watch some of these old classic movies because you'd be surprised how good they are and where a lot of our filming techniques came from. And that, yeah, you know what I mean? These were like the first to try to do these things too. And that's what makes them kind of have like such a unique place in cinematography history. And it just uh, gives you a bit more respect of what what all went into some of these movies.
Mm-hmm.
The original King Kong was, I mean, it was made during the Great Depression for one, and it was just like,
That movie actually still holds pretty well
oh
or
yeah,
holds pretty well today, and it's all stop motion with the whole
Yes.
Kong sequences.
Yeah, it is. And like I said, it was made during the Great Depression when there was pretty much no money, and yet they were still able to
Exactly.
make it. Interestingly enough, the re-release of King Kong happened in the 50s, and it made more money that during that re-release than it did during its original run in 1933 because of the Great Depression. So it's just awe-inspiring, that movie, and it's one of the inspirations for Godzilla as well as Beast from 20,000 Phantoms. Both those movies contributed to the birth of Godzilla. And King Kong is like just this like island adventure movie, and like, people are actually dying, and it's like, wow. I mean, they really pulled out all the stops for that movie, and it's just brutal in some scenes. So, you know,
I mean, one of my favorite movie or monster movies happens to be a Kong movie. It's King Kong Lives from the '80s with
yeah,
what's her name? Sarah
Linda
Connor.
Hamilton,
Yeah,
yeah, Linda Hamilton, yeah,
yeah, and it was just it was the first Kong movie that I actually saw,
uh,
and it happened to be a sequel to a '70s Kong
remake,
movie.
yeah,
Yeah, to the '70s remake where he didn't get shot down by planes; he got shot down by
helicopters,
helicopters. Yeah, and man, that movie was actually so freaking good because the
yeah,
guy or Kong wakes up after hearing Lady Kong calling
yeah,
or crying
yeah,
out in pain and whatnot because she's kind of being tortured by the
yeah,
humans in a way because they couldn't
yeah,
find her a place and they kept on scaring her with the bulldozers. And
yeah,
Kong is hearing her and whatnot, and he's trying to jump up, and or at first, no, he wasn't hearing her at first, but he was just trying to get away. And she's
right,
like, shut him down. And the artificial heart she put in
yeah,
shuts him down. But it's like, didn't you just kill him? I mean, now that I look back on it, it's like, wait, every time you shut him down, aren't you essentially killing him?
yeah, pretty much.
I mean,
Make
but then you're
going to
just
cardiac
bringing
arrest.
it back to life, and it's like, it it doesn't make sense as an
Hmm.
adult when you're watching it. I mean, logically, it doesn't make sense, but it still, to me, had a touching story. I
Yes,
mean,
yeah,
when Kong pulls out a giant freaking snake trying to offer it to Lady Kong and she freaks out
yeah,
and whatnot,
yeah,
it's like, oh my gosh, that is so freaking
yeah,
priceless
yeah, yeah,
and
and
whatnot. The ending
yeah,
was
that was.
heartbreaking, though.
Oh yeah, yeah. It never ends. Like, it doesn't end well for Kong usually. Well, Kong Skull Island, he's still alive, but that's because they need him for Godzilla. But
Hmm.
yeah, and it's actually the only, I think, yeah, it was King Kong versus Godzilla, which was by Toho. That was the first Kong movie that he actually lives through it.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
I
even
actually go ahead.
because even in Son of Kong, which is a sequel to King Kong, his son dies. I mean, he drowns. So it's like, yeah, bummer.
Okay, yeah, it or my internet was and still is hiccuping a little bit. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It's understandable. But yeah, what were you going to say then?
Um, actually, say what you were saying because I wasn't able to hear it.
Oh no, I was saying like with the origin with King Kong, like even there's a trend that he dies tragically, like the first one. Then Sun Kong, even the sun drowns. I mean, and like it's usually like it's the tragic um death, because when you really look at it, it's not that he's evil, it's just that he's you know caught in this world where um he doesn't understand, which is civilization.
Yeah.
I think that that's more of the moral of it, when it comes down to it. But and that's like the kind of opposite thing in American movies. So in American movies, when you really look at monster movies in American movies, so here's what happens. The formula is when the monster is in its own environment, it's unstoppable. It's just completely, you know, it's
It's a
complete
force
and
of nature.
absolute roar of its environment. However, when it comes to civilization, man's collective intelligence overcomes this. And this comes from, especially in American movies, this comes from the idea of what happened in America's own history. We came to this country and had to literally, build it from the ground up, and dealing with nature and natural predators and stuff like that. It's a constant thing even today, and it's almost like this idea of humanity, overcoming their environment, so to speak. The opposite is said in the Godzilla movies. In the very first Godzilla movie, it's just the opposite. Godzilla destroys civilization. He like completely eradicates it. How do they defeat Godzilla? They go into his own territory, sneak up on him while he's sleeping, essentially, and kill him. It's kind of like the complete opposite viewpoint that they see when it came to the Japanese way of doing the monster movie.
Yeah.
And so, like,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I actually, when I was a kid, I saw the Kong versus Godzilla, and because at that time I was still a very big fan of King Kong, and I see that he has these electrical powers and whatnot, and I'm like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
what? And it was just, oh my gosh. But I saw, or from the stuff that I'm seeing with Godzilla versus Kong coming out this year, it's like there's a lot of speculation. I mean, 2014 Godzilla Monsterverse was well done. They kept it grounded. They kept as best as they could, and it was just a great expression that Gareth Edwards did. 26 or 16 or 2017's Kong Skull Island then comes out, and I was taken back to being a kid again, seeing King Kong Lives, and it's like holy crap, this is great stuff. And also in this one, Kong is indeed alive and lives, and it's great and whatnot.
Yes.
And he's not taken out of Skull Island, so it wasn't the kind of stereotypical Kong film.
No, it wasn't.
And we see how Kong has grown and survived for Godzilla vs. Kong, and it's now finally come out how Kong will be the same size as Godzilla. It's because of all of the radiation and whatnot. He is growing because of the radiation that he has absorbed over years. And even if you think about it, though, all you really have to do is just look at it from a mathematical point of view. I mean, look at the rate of how Godzilla grew. I think it was like 39 or 40 feet in 5 years.
5 years, yep.
So he grew like roughly around 8 feet a year.
Yeah.
And take the 1972 to 2019 or 2020,
Yeah.
and you get roughly like 6 to 7 feet
Yes.
a year, 6 to 7 feet a year from 72 to 2020, which is 30 or 42 years. You would, or Kong would be the same size as Godzilla.
Yes.
So both of them have grown roughly 6 to 8 feet a year,
Right.
and whatnot. So it makes sense logically he would be that big. And people are like, did he get a growth spurt? It's like, you guys are forgetting Kong Skull Island took place in the 70s, not in the or the new age.
Yeah.
And another cool thing is, what's up, ABC? We just saw his. And one of the cool things is, or not really cool, but this was the first movie that I had seen Brie Larson in. And I didn't think her character was that essential, but everybody says that Kong Skull Island, she brought her stupid wokeness in it, and it's like, no, not really. Because think about it, her character had a name that was obviously mistaken for a male. Yeah. Also, she was a photographer, a world photographer, and whatnot. She was kind of a hippie, so to speak.
Yeah. Yep.
So it makes sense and whatnot. And back then, the whole women thing was also common. So her doing that stuff in that movie, I won't fault her for it, because guess what? It was more commonplace back then. Where nowadays, when she's saying this stuff, it makes no sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And
she's gotten lost in her own activism. Because I've talked to people who have met her and whatnot, and they're like, honestly, she's more down to earth than she lets on when she's in front of a camera and not on a movie. And I'm like, well, then she must be one of the best fucking actors I've ever known, because she has, and there are some terrible and the directors she has been a part of are freaking terrible. Because if you look at Captain Marvel, she's a block of wood the whole freaking time.
Yeah. And that was the thing. Amy-Wan Kenobi, I was talking to her the one day. Huh?
She met her, yeah. She was actually one of the people I was talking to.
Yeah, and she actually said, oh no, she's actually a delightful person to talk to. And I'm like, wait, really? She goes, yeah, she didn't seem to say any of that crazy stuff she says in front of the camera. And it's like, well, then who's paying her to say this stuff? And it makes me wonder.
Well, also, do you know who Fedorable the Horrible is?
Yes. But doesn't he have a...
He's that Hellcat.
Yeah, the cat. Yeah, the cat. Yeah. Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah.
Well, he works or lives in Hollywood.
Oh,
and he has met celebrities and stuff.
Right.
And I'm not going to get into too much of stuff, but basically, he's met a lot of them. I mean, he's met the woman who plays Skye from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., who plays Quake. And he's, I'll have to tell you that off stream, but he's basically told me that don't judge most of these celebrities too harshly from what they say when in front of a camera. Because believe it or not, Hollywood has become a very dangerous place for conservative viewpoints. If you are conservative, you're going to get blacklisted, and you're going to have people not want to work with you. Now, there are a certain few that are exceptions because of the clout they carry with their names, like Robert
Right.
Downey Jr., he is unashamedly Republican and
Yeah,
whatnot.
and
He
Clint
supports
Eastwood.
Republican Party and whatnot. And you also
Yeah.
got people like James Woods, who's retired from acting, but he also has no problem making his viewpoints known. Dean Cain
Right.
as well. But they all have clout. They all have they don't care what people think of them anymore
Right.
and whatnot. But one of the reasons, or everybody says that, well, Robert Downey Jr. is not coming back to the MCU, and it's like, well, chances are he's not towing the line of what they want. He has different viewpoints than them, and they don't like that.
Right.
So that's probably why they ended up killing him. I mean, I wouldn't
Yeah.
have minded if freaking Captain America bit the dust in Endgame, but they ended up killing Iron Man instead, and it's like, well, in a way, it does kind of make more sense to have Iron Man die, because he was the one that was truly fighting Thanos.
Yeah.
Especially from the first Avengers game, or the first Avengers movie, because
Yes.
he was the one Avenger that Thanos feared above all others, because Stark was preparing for years to fight this one threat, and that threat was Thanos. Thanos felt that Stark was the only, or was the one person who could possibly foil his plan. And he actually fought him pretty well, and he actually drew blood. He drew first blood on Thanos. And even though he was pushing cutting edge technology with his nano suit, or with his nanotech suit, it still wasn't enough. But you also got to realize that this Thanos was wielding the Infinity Gauntlet. So it's like, he's gonna, or even with the Infinity Gauntlet, Stark was holding his own. And one of my favorite lines from Infinity War: "You throw another moon at me, and I'm gonna lose it." It's like, he just lit. "You throw another moon at me, and I'm gonna lose it, Stark."
Yeah.
And it's like, you know me? I do. You're not the only one cursed with knowledge. And oh my gosh, how they did the heads up display with that thing. It's like, every time it's just before he says it, you can see the things. It's like the suit is not responding to his words, it's responding to his thoughts, because you see what he wants just before he says it. When he says, "Friday, give me a boost," before he says boost, the damn booster display comes up. When he says, "My only curse is you," you see the back rockets come out of it, or come up on his display, and then you go, or it shows the back rockets. And it's like, this is how far he's pushed himself. And also, when he says, "Tell me his name again," Thanos, and when Bruce is talking to him, and one of the things he says under his breath, "This is it. What's our timeline?" But when he says, "This is it," you understand that this is the one thing that he has been planning on.
Right.
And an Endgame, as flawed and as bad as a movie that is, I can actually somewhat be entertained watching that movie. When he freaks out in the beginning, when he flips out on Captain America and on Steve, where he calls him, "I told you all this was going to happen, and what we needed was a suit of armor around the world, no matter how much it affected our precious freedoms and whatnot." And the thing is, he was right.
Yeah.
He was right. Sometimes you do have to sacrifice things in order to protect the world. And because he knew that there was going to be an existential threat coming.
Yep.
And he wanted to do as much as he possibly could to fight it. Now, unfortunately, big ass Captain America just couldn't handle it.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people ask, what side were you on, Team Stark or Team Cap? Me, I was on Team Stark because he was right.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have unlimited power and go unchecked.
Yeah.
And
that leads down a darker
it
path.
leads to tyranny. Exactly. Yeah. And the problem is, everybody says, well, Captain America in Captain America Civil War, it's Captain America's movie, so obviously Stark loses. But it's like, he lost, yeah. And here's the thing. The bad guy won.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, and I'm not talking about Zemo. I'm talking about Captain America. He was the bad guy in his own freaking movie.
Yeah.
From a certain point of view, as Obi-Wan or as Ben Kenobi says.
Yeah.
But it's like, dude, you don't realize that going unchecked is not the way to go. You have to have checks and balances, so to speak. And Stark was trying to explain that to him.
What's ironic about how you said that, what's ironic with Captain America literally becoming his own villain is he faced that same villain in World War II. It's like
the Red Skull. Yeah.
Yeah. You're becoming or Nazi Germany in general. You're becoming what you fought against. And you see that theme in so many movies where it's the idea that you become what you're fighting against, Anakin Skywalker, that's what happened with him. You have
Dark
and it's
Knight.
kind of like Dark Knight. It's almost like a poetic moment, if you will, and it's actually a very common way of storytelling, especially if you look at ancient Greek heroes. What happens to a lot? They fall in love with their own legend, and it leads to that either them going mad or them having excessive hubris. So
exactly, and with all the gods that they have back then, there would have been one god that would have been able to feed off of their particular thing more than any, and that would be Narcissus, which is the god of narcissism, basically.
Yep, exactly.
And many of the demigods and heroes were very narcissistic after they became heroes.
Yep.
Hercules was no exception.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, the one that I believe was the most humble was actually another son of Zeus, which was Perseus.
Yes. Yeah, he's one of the few ones that actually stayed true to being a hero.
Yep. He didn't ask for much afterward. He didn't care to about being a full god or anything. He just wanted to live a simple life. And he was granted that by Zeus after he had saved Andromeda from Cetus.
Yep.
I'm not going by the Clash of the Titans movie. I'm going by the actual myth.
Yes.
Because
same here.
The Kraken contrary to popular belief, folks, the Kraken is not Greek mythology. The Kraken is actually Norse mythology.
Yes. I've had to tell people that several times, actually.
I mean, when I saw the Clash of the Titans thing where you see Liam Neeson, release the Kraken! And it's like, the Kraken? What the fuck?
Yeah.
I thought Perseus fought Cetus. And
there was
Cetus. And it's like, oh, Jesus, you are an uneducated bunch, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, hey, actually, fun fact, there was actually a long-standing rumor. It's been disproven, but it actually kind of made some sense. There was a long-standing rumor because Clash of the Titans was made by Warner Brothers and Legendary. There was a long-standing rumor that the events of Clash of the Titans were actually part of the MonsterVerse. But it's been disproven. But that was actually a very interesting thing.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is,
because
if you think about it, what does Emma Russell say when she is talking about the Titans when she's giving her whole evil speech. The first gods.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, she's not wrong there. The Titans were the first deities.
Yeah, they are.
They weren't gods, but they were deities.
Yep.
They were a deified form.
Yep.
And I mean, I love Greek mythology because, and I could talk all day about it. And I will actually have to send you a Google document that I have of a novel that I was actually working on myself.
Oh, cool.
And it's basically about Greek mythology in today's time called Overseer of Olympus.
Oh.
And I mean, this was something that I was interested in writing and whatnot. And I'll have to send it to you after we're done here. But basically I took Greek mythology and I completely flipped it on its head.
Oh, okay.
Because basically all right, let me ask you two questions. History is written by the what?
Victors.
Exactly. Who won the Great War between gods and titans?
The gods.
Exactly. Now, how many sides to each argument or to an argument are there normally?
Normally 2 sides.
Exactly. Now, that is basically the main focus of the book or the story I was telling called Overseer of Olympus. Now, Zeus, and the thing is, I actually, when I was writing the prologue, I was taking like different examples from movies and whatnot, and like Hunger Games, Lord of the Rings, and whatnot, how they can actually be attributed to the gods' influence. Because when Lord of the Rings came out, there was a massive uptake in sword and forging again. They were starting to, or forging arms was starting to become a thing again. Well, who was the god of the forge? Hephaestus. Maybe he was whispering in the right ears at Weta Workshop, and all around the world he was getting more, or he was starting to whisper in the right ears. When Hunger Games came out, there was a huge upsurge in archery. Well, which god and goddesses are known for hunting and bows? Artemis. Who Artemis is also a main character in my story because she's also a maiden goddess, which or you do know what a maiden goddess is, right?
Which one's that?
Maiden goddesses are goddesses that can't have, or they can't really fall in love or have sex.
Oh, okay.
They have to be a maiden. I mean, one of the older ways of describing a person's or a woman's virginity is their maiden head.
Oh, okay,
meaning their hymen.
Yeah.
And whatnot. So, yes, folks, this is not for kids, and we are giving you a little bit of sex education here.
I put that in the description, not for minors. Trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Yeah. It's a great story. I'll have to send it to you.
Well, actually, when you get into Greek mythology, you get a lot of incest and a whole bunch of others.
Because they're all fucking related.
Well, okay, here's a quick question for you, because a couple friends of mine, we were arguing about this. Let's see. We want to know let me ask your opinion. How many children did Zeus have? We were arguing about this because we could not figure it out, because we're thinking, dude, he supposedly had one in every city-state of Greece. Not to mention when he was in Egypt hiding from Typhon, God knows what he was doing there. While he was doing there, we were trying to figure it out. Are you kidding?
Basically, 60% of the population of Greece was a child of Zeus, or
Yeah.
a descendant of a child of Zeus.
Yeah.
I mean, Zeus, to be complete, I'm going to be blunt with you folks.
Yeah.
Zeus was a man whore.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Why do you think Hera did not like him a lot? Why do you think Hera was very jealous of people like Perseus and Hercules and others? And contrary to popular belief, folks, believe it or not, Hercules, the Legendary Journeys with Kevin Sorbo, Hera, the goddess that always was trying to kill Hercules, she was jealous of Hercules, but she eventually put aside her hatred when he finished his 12 labors.
Yes.
Because,
fun fact.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, fun fact too. Another reason why she was so upset about that was her own children, Hephaestus, who came out lame, even though he was a great blacksmith, was not up to her standards. And then Ares, who was the god of war and just arrogant and everything else. So it's like, her actual children sucked, according to her. Yeah. So that's what made her even more jealous when Zeus would have half mortal children who actually end up being better than her own children. And that's what made her even more angry,
Yeah, you also have, and he also had kids with other goddesses.
Yeah.
And, freaking Aphrodite, and, which I believe Hephaestus was given to.
Yes.
And whatnot.
Yes. That was what originally happened. And then Aphrodite was actually sneaking around with Ares, and supposedly
brother, sister. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, here's even the funnier part. Hephaestus laid out a trap for them and then caught them in like a net. Well, joke was on Hephaestus because all the other gods knew about it, and they just they were just enjoying the show.
Yeah.
So the poor guy, it's like they all knew about it. Oh, I tell you what, the gods were more human than anything else as far as their personalities. They weren't this, eternal kind of like all good or all bad. They were like very much human personalities. They got jealous. They had rage, but they also had kindness. They also had,
compassion.
Different points of view too on the same subject. It was very much a very different take on the idea of like God or gods or creation itself. So
Hephaestus actually plays a minor role in the first and only book that I wrote, because the first work that I did is unfinished.
Right.
But Hephaestus is mentioned because the company that the main character is a child, or is not a child of a god. He isn't what I called a Titan god, because he possesses all the powers of the Titans and gods. And I mean all of them.
Oh.
And there's only one way that you could be that. You have to be the child of the very first Titan, Ouranos. And he was the one Titan that did not take part in the Great War between the Titans and the gods, because he was already overthrown by his son Kronos.
Kronos, yeah. Which means time.
No. That is Kronos. He is a different Titan than Kronos. Kronos is the Titan of time. Kronos is the Titan which was also the father of Zeus, Ares, and or Zeus.
Wait, are you talking about the one with the K or the one with the C?
The one with the K.
With K. Okay, all right.
Kronos is that Titan. Kronos is the Titan of time. Even Kronos is actually takes part in the stories that I had that never were put to paper. But the thing is, now when you have two powers like gods and titans smashing into each other and
Yeah.
fighting and whatnot,
Yeah.
you're gonna have cast off, which is pieces of their powers and whatnot that are just cast off like collateral damage.
Yeah.
Well, after the battle was won, a lone figure walks among that battlefield and literally grabs up all of the leftover energy, the cast off energy, and it is Oranos. He collects it. He brings it to the three servants who are still still loyal to him, the Fates.
Right.
And he gives them to him and he says, cast a thread. And you are going to infuse that thread with this energy. But I do not want you to activate the thread until I say so.
Mm-hmm.
And he waits throughout time, hidden away from the gods and the titans.
Right.
Now the titans are slowly building up, or they have come back after a time, but they are hidden from the gods because, well, the gods are still ruling Olympus and whatnot.
Okay.
Now, in today's time, he falls in love with, or Oranos falls in love with a woman.
Right.
And he gets her pregnant, and he then tells the Fates cast the thread. And the son, who is named Dicastus, which is Greek for justice,
right,
is born. He is basically a demi-titan, so to speak. Not a demigod, but I call him a titan god because of all the power he has.
Right.
He doesn't know he has what he is. All he knows about his father is his father had to leave shortly after he was born.
Oh.
Because Zeus caught wind of a prophecy from a descendant of the priest or of the Oracle of Delphi.
Right.
Where a person will come who will be the overseer of Olympus. Zeus misinterprets the prophecy, thinking that this person is going to overthrow Olympus.
Yeah.
And he wants that person dead, obviously.
Right.
He doesn't want to give up that kind of power.
Right.
So he sends his most trusted and loyal child to spy on this person who he feels might be the one that he is looking for, because he can't directly influence humanity. That is one rule that I kept too. You can't directly influence humanity, but they have been laxing on that rule. They have kind of been crossing that line a little bit here and there. I mean, in the book, Aphrodite has a novel, or not a novel. I mean, she literally runs the world's most successful dating website.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
And whatnot. But yeah, it's a great story. I'll have to give it, or let you check it out.
Have you ever read American God?
I know a friend who has, but I have not personally. No.
That's a very interesting one. It's kind of hard to explain. You almost have to kind of like either read it or watch the first season of the show. But it's literally all the different mythologies
are rolled into one.
But in a very unique way, because they're in battle with the new gods. The new gods are things like media. Media is literally TV, arguing that TV has become an altar. People don't even talk to each other when they're watching TV. They're only praising me. Then there's the Mr. World, which is literally the world itself. Then there's Techno Boy, which anything technology is his realm, from computers to the internet to like industry, like the computerized industry. That's all his realm. And it's interesting because what is happening is the new gods. The argument is the way gods die is nobody believes in them anymore. So the new gods see this, especially with the way the world is now. People don't believe in religion in general a lot now, so they see it as their time to pretty much make the final move and get rid of all the old gods for good. So a man named Mr. Wednesday employs this man named Shadow. Now, Mr. Wednesday, do you know who Mr. Wednesday is?
Mm-hmm.
Who's Mr. Wednesday?
Wait, what?
Mr. Wednesday. Think about it. What day is Wednesday?
The day of weddings.
No. Odin's day.
Yeah.
In the old way. So he's Odin. So he pretty much takes Shadow, and he takes on this journey. They're trying to find all the old gods and bring them together. Now, Shadow, the reason why he takes Shadow is, it's said in the dialogue that the reason why he's called Shadow is when he was little, he would follow his mom anywhere she would go, literally becoming his shadow. What he's looking into Shadow is a believer, somebody he can make believe in the gods, the old gods again. When you start to have a believer, they become more powerful again. So it's very smart writing in how it's done, but it can get kind of confusing because what they even say is, by the way, there's like 50 different Jesuses.
Well, here's the thing. There's one inherent flaw in that entire book. You say that there is the world, which is a new god.
Yeah, he's part of the new gods. Yeah, he's part of the new gods.
There's just one problem. The world is already a titan.
Yeah.
A female titan by the name of Gaia.
Yeah.
So that kind of just totally destroys that entire narrative.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they don't actually really include the Greek gods.
Oh, for fuck's sake! How the?
These are some of these gods I've never even heard of, but they're like niche gods. Like Queen of Sheba is one of them, and
Shiva?
literally Sheba, Queen of Sheba.
All right, Shiva, which is actually the actual name, not Sheba, but Shiva.
Yeah,
which would be an Indian god.
Actually, in this
or
one,
goddess.
it's actually from like around Ethiopia / Middle East.
Yeah,
But like, she literally gets her power from having sex with people and then forcing them into the vagina nebula. No joke. That's literally what happens.
Wow, 50 Shades of Grey, god-wise.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It gets really. It gets really into it, but like I was saying, there's like 50 different Jesuses because everyone has a different interpretation of Jesus. Like there's even the Mexican. It's and then he gets killed by another Jesus who is more of the hellfire and brimstone Jesus. It just goes. It gets really meta, like all over the place.
Why don't they just call the book Jesus Wars?
Well, he's only a small part of it, but like they have a Stella, who's like the equivalent would be Easter, the goddess of the spring. So it's actually a very interesting book. It's hard to follow at first, but it's pretty interesting. I like the concept of it. But yeah, they don't really have. It was kind of funny because they went with more like the more lesser known gods than the
Greek gods. Than the Greek gods and Romans. Yeah. I mean, Rick Riordan actually, when he did the Percy Jackson series, I thought that was a great series, the original 5 books,
Right.
because when a person like me with ADHD and borderline autism, when you're focused on something like that, you can literally visualize it.
Oh, yeah.
you can actually visualize it all. And when I saw before I read the books, I actually got into I saw the movie, and they're like, well, here's the book, and read the book, and I did, and I'm like, this book is freaking awesome. And they're like, I mean, I was in my 20s and shit reading
Right.
these books, and it's more for kids to read it, but it's like I couldn't put it down. And then I read the next one and the next one and the next one. And as I'm reading these books, it's like I am not just reading, I am literally watching a movie within the pages.
Right.
I can actually do that if I invest into a book that I really like. Even with the novelization of Godzilla or King Kong, or God damn it, King of the Monsters.
King of the Monsters.
Yeah. I can literally see the movie in the book as well, but I can also see additional things happening.
Right.
I can visualize the Kraken monster that has an undisclosed name, but they nicknamed it Kraken.
Yeah.
I can visualize Mokele Membe. I can visualize all the other different monsters and how they're escaping and whatnot, because they're freaking so well done.
Yes.
Now, I wish they had dived more into the POVs of Godzilla and whatnot. I mean, you only get a Godzilla POV in the beginning of the book, and you then get a Kong POV during the Alpha Call from Ghidorah.
Yeah.
But it's like, God damn it, if they would have done POVs of the monsters, it would have been so freaking great.
Yeah.
And but back to Percy Jackson. Have you read those books?
No.
Oh man, I highly recommend you do. Because there's a girl who is not a half-blood or a demigod, but she's just a normal mortal, but she starts to see things. And she paints what she sees. And Typhon, who is the one monster that stood up against Zeus and nearly killed him, as you know.
Right. Yeah.
He's hidden in Mount St. Helens. Because Greek myth came to America, basically.
Right.
And instead of being put under Pompeii, I think it was, Typhon is now under Mount St. Helens, and that was also where one of Hephaestus's favorite forges was. Well, Percy, being the son of Poseidon, floods Hephaestus's forge to save the day somehow or another, but he also cools the mountain a little bit too much to cause a massive eruption, and it wakes up Typhon. And the way that Rick Riordan describes how Typhon rises up from the mountain and whatnot, it's like, I can see that. I can literally see that.
Oh.
And
cool.
Yeah, and then in the final book where the climax of all of the books come into it, Zeus and all the gods are literally fighting Typhon to keep him away from New York City, where Olympus is. And they literally take him from Washington, because at first he was making a beeline straight to Olympus. But they managed to divert him all the way down to the Mississippi Arc, that big ass round thing that's made out of metal. But Percy has a vision of news media and whatnot where they're following this freak storm, which mortals can only perceive as a huge storm and whatnot. But the way that he describes what happens next is the air goes very silent but also heavy and charged, and then a massive thunderbolt strikes the storm system. And Percy then realizes Zeus just used his Master Bolt against Typhon, and it only caused Typhon to stumble back a little bit.
Oh.
The way that they describe the Master Bolt in the book is it's more powerful than 10,000 nukes. Now,
Wow.
imagine 10,000 or 10,000 plus nukes hitting a monster and it's only stumbling back a little bit.
Yeah.
It'd be like,
Now what? Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
it's fuck.
Yeah.
I mean, he finally gets there, but the girl that I was telling you about, who paints what she sees, she paints a massive storm system in New York City and a demonic looking hand reaching out towards the Empire State Building, which is literally the gate to Olympus.
Oh.
And I'm like, I can actually see the paint in my head. I can actually visualize a painting like that and whatnot. And it's just so cool, man. I mean, that is the wonderful thing about books and whatnot.
Yeah.
If they're written the right way,
yeah,
you can visualize it perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing, trying to find a book that does that.
Well, like I said, man, or some of these books that are meant for kids, and for the most part, believe it or not, if you have like ADHD or something, you can actually do a pretty good job visualizing it. I mean, there's Percy Jackson. There's also the I Am the Lorien Legacies from I Am number 4. That's actually a very good series in itself as well.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look those up.
Sorry, it went on for such a huge stretch.
No, it's fine. No, like I think my wife read the first Percy Jackson book, but she said she wasn't really into it. And she likes to read and that type of thing. But I tried to talk to her about the Greek myths, and she kind of gets bored after about 2 minutes, and it's like, okay, you're not really into that then.
Well, the story that I have written, you want to know how awkward it was to write one scene where basically 2 virgins are going to have sex? You know how awkward it was to write that scene?
Yeah. I don't even know how I could even write that scene.
It took me a month and a half to write that scene.
Oh, geez.
And it's like, yikes. I mean, the book 1, which was, well, supposed to be book 1, it was called Broken Oaths. And there are many oaths that are broken in that book. I mean, Artemis, as a maiden goddess, she actually falls in love with Tacastus because Tacastus is so taken with her and whatnot. But so she finally breaks her oath by falling in love with him and then also sleeping with him.
Right.
And there will be consequences, or there are going to be consequences for her later on in the series if I ever do write it. But I'd actually have to describe it to you because I don't think I will ever get out of the writer's block that I'm in.
Yeah. Well, so the book that you're making, it takes place in today's world, you said?
Yes, today's time. Okay. Originally, it was supposed to take place in I was writing it back in 2018, or from 2013 to 2017. I was writing it, and I had a full first draft, finished, complete, done, and I was just fleshing out the details, like the little expositions in between, because it was like 90 pages. Then a virus literally wipes out my laptop, and I'm like,
yep.
So I had to get a thumb drive, which I had it all saved and whatnot. Right. But I couldn't find a thumb drive after after I was incarcerated. But but I still had my laptop, which still had this thing saved and all of that. And it's like, okay, well, my laptop was slowly falling apart, and I'm like, I'm going to have to do something. A friend of mine recommended Google Docs. I'm like, okay, then I'll do that. And I like Google Docs because it works better than all the the notepad, the generic notepad that I was using
Right.
to write it in on the computer, because it actually does a lot of self-editing, and I'm like, oh, I love this.
That's
I
good.
just wish that I could use Google Docs on a freaking Kindle, but I can't
Uh,
unless
but,
unless I use a browser to do it.
mhm.
But I have Google Docs on my phone, so I can send it to you. Hopefully, yeah.
I see. That's cool. But yeah, when it comes to like, well, mythology in general, I always really like, Greek mythology is obviously like one of the biggest ones, but I like even reading about even other from other countries like Japan, China.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
just
I'm a
fun.
myth person myself.
Yeah.
I mean,
It,
I actually like an abridged version of the Yoko Ono myth, the myth of the Japanese maiden in the mountains, Yoko Ono.
mm,
And it is a pretty interesting myth because she lived up in those mountains, which are very cold and whatnot, and
right.
because she was scorned by her husband, she never was able to rest, and she was very much like a lot of these third wave feminist SJW women that hate men. But there is a kind of myth that where a man who is pure of hearts, basically,
Mhm.
would be able to thaw her frozen heart,
Right.
and she would then be able to return to the living to marry that man.
Right.
So it's pretty interesting.
hmm And yeah, it's just, I always say that what's interesting about mythology in general to me is, you know, it it's cool to me because this is where our storytelling and our in movies and stuff like that, this is where this originally came from. It wasn't written down, it was just passed on from generation to generation, through words and stuff like that. So it's I just amazed how long these things have survived to be
Well,
written.
they did eventually start getting transcribed and whatnot.
Yeah, but the fact that they were actually, verbally passed down at first and not even
Yeah.
written, and then it still survived long enough to be written. I'm just amazed by that. I mean, uh, because I love history and I love learning about that kind of stuff, and it's like, wow.
hmm I mean, uh, you watch Netflix, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen the Castlevania show or
What,
series?
the one based on the video game?
Yeah.
No, didn't get to yet.
Um, well, they have a monk order or an order of monks who literally forego parchment, and they keep their history through word of mouth,
Oh,
and it's pretty interesting.
that's interesting. Yeah. I just watched the first episode that Dracula from Netflix.
Oh God, I thought that was an interesting take. I mean, I'm not so sure about a bisexual Dracula, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, well, that part aside, I was like, after the first episode, I didn't get to see the other one, but I'm like, holy shit.
Plus a gender bent Van Helsing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? I kind of saw that
That
coming.
can be overlooked. Yeah, it's
I
like,
kind of saw that coming though, because the way she was acting and the way she seemed to already know this stuff, it's like I have a feeling that's Van Helsing.
yeah, and it's like, I mean, I can overlook it. It's because, or at least she's not saying, I'm a woman and this and that and yada yada. So it's not really woke. But
No.
it's like, why are you making? So the question is, why? Why would
Yeah.
you have a gender bent Van Helsing who is a freaking nun?
Yeah.
And why would you why would you suggest that Dracula is bisexual? I mean, he literally says he wants to make Jonathan Harker a bride.
Yeah.
And it's like, ugh, this is not. Well, and he's like, I don't think they, and a friend is like, I don't think he means spice or sexual. It's like, it doesn't matter if it doesn't mean a sexual bride, he's still misusing the word.
Yeah.
Because bride, literally by definition, woman
the very
expecting
first
to
scene-
be married.
Well, in the very first scene, she's like, "Have you ever had sexual contact with Dracula?" You know,
Oh
like-
my god, when she was very freaking, it's like she was just so freaking direct. It's like, have you ever had sex with Dracula? It's like the fuck? And that was literally my reaction. It's like,
I was
the
thinking to
fuck?
myself, "Oh God, is this where this series is going?" It was like, "Oh boy."
Exactly. It's like, oh my, this is just disturbing.
Yeah, but
And oh my gosh, man, it was just so freaking disturbing the way that
Yeah.
it's like, did you have sexual intercourse with Dracula? It's like,
Huh?
where is this going? Like the fuck, where is this going?
yeah, I just saw the first episode. I didn't see the other two.
Oh, the second one actually is pretty good. The third one is like, meh. I mean, the one thing that I did not like about this was they said based off the novel by Bram Stoker. It's like, well, automatically this is a failing review.
Yeah.
You guys automatically failed your review because you said it's based off the novel.
No.
If you really wanted to get a passing score off of my reviews, you would have said based off the characters inspired by Bram Stoker's novel.
Yes. If you did
But
the
they
characters
based it off his novel, and that's where it went wrong.
Yeah. There's so many different interpretations of the Dracula story. Same with the Frankenstein story. It's like, how many different versions are we going to get here?
Exactly. I mean, to date, even today, to current date, the most accurate depiction of Bram Stoker's book was the one with Keanu Reeves, Anthony Hopkins, and Gary Oldman and Winona Ryder.
Yeah.
And Carrie Elwes, and or not Bruce Campbell, but another Campbell. Different. But yeah, it's like, that was. I mean, they were actually using the Demeter logs from the novel. They were using the journals of Jonathan Harker from the novel, and it's like, yeah, this works and whatnot. I mean, the only thing, or fun fact, I used to be able to watch that movie without flinching like that. I could easily watch it. After my cousin, who is now 10 years old, going to be 11 this year, after he was born and I tried watching the movie, I honestly couldn't watch it because at that time I had grown to care for kids to a degree of that borders on paternal. And when Dracula feeds his brides a baby, it's like, I can't watch that. I literally can't watch that.
Yeah. And that kind of makes sense, in my opinion, because it's kind of like how when you become a caregiver, especially when you become a caregiver and whatnot, and you see this in the movie, and it's like it hits too close to home, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, every time even if I hear a perfect stranger who is a kid crying, my first instinct is to jump and help.
Yeah.
But I then have to stop myself because it's like, it's not my kid. it's also a perfect stranger. That would be weird. I mean, when I was 18 years old, there was this kid trying to get his grandma or his mother's attention. She was talking to a guy, and oh my gosh, funny thing is her husband was in the next aisle over trying to get something for her. And the dad or the kid's like, "Mommy, watch me. Mommy, watch me." He stands up in the cart where he's supposed to be sitting and just dives or jumps out of the cart. And I just reach out and grab him by the leg to stop him from hitting the ground. Right. That's when Mom decides to look back. "What are you doing with my kid?" And it's like, I'm saving his freaking life. And what are you doing talking? And I knew the woman. I'm like, "What are you doing talking to a guy or flirting with a guy that's not your husband?" And her husband was just walking around because he heard the commotion, and he's like, when he heard me say that, he's like, "Honey, what?" And she's like, "Oh my God, it's not what you think." And it's like, "Oh, we're going that, or you're using that excuse, huh?" And I just walked away because it completely blew up from there, man. I mean, I didn't say that out loud, but it's I didn't say that out loud. The part where it's like, "Oh, you're going to use that excuse, huh?" But
right.
It's like, oh boy. Whenever they say it's not what you think, it is what you think.
Yeah.
I mean, I just one of these days, I'm going to be put in that position again, and I'm just going to say, "Yes, it is." And I'm just going to be that asshole. I'm sorry. There's times where I am an asshole.
You don't seem like it to me, so.
Oh, trust me, you haven't known me that long. Just give it time. But oh my gosh, dude, when it came, or have you ever seen Dracula Untold? The one with Luke Evans.
No, I did not.
Oh, that is such a good movie. It has one of the best freaking lines in cinema in it. It's like, "Sometimes the world doesn't need a hero. What it needs is a monster. By laying one town to the stake, I spared 10 more." He perfectly defends his position as Vlad the Impaler.
Well, actually, yeah, he pretty much really did that too. So
it's like, and because the vampire that was actually going to help him, he actually asked, or Vlad the Impaler, son of the devil, and this and that, and whatnot, or Vlad Dracul, and this and that. And he's like, "And when you laid them to this, or how many people did you kill?" He's like, "Hundreds." And then he said, vampire puts him up against the wall. "Lie to me again, and I'll slit you from your groin to your belly and feed on your intestines." And he's like, "Thousands." And he's like, and then he told him thousands. And he's like, "And when you put them to the stake, what did you feel?" "Horror, regret." And there's a small beat of silence, and he yells, "Answer me." "Nothing." I literally felt nothing. But I also spared, or I may have killed thousands, but I had spared so many more. By laying one town to the stake, I spared 10. Sometimes the world doesn't need a hero. What it needs is a monster. And that's what sealed the bargain with that vampire, which is played by Charles Dance, who is in Underworld playing a vampire in the Underworld Awakening movie.
Oh, yeah, that's yeah.
So he's played a vampire in two different thingies, or two different franchises, Dracula and Underworld. But oh my gosh, man, it was during the 2016 election. I actually kind of paraphrased the Dracula Untold thing. Sometimes the world doesn't need a president. What it needs is an asshole. It was just fun. It's like, yeah. I mean, that's the small political thing I'm going to touch on, but it's like, yeah. And everybody knows he is an asshole. I I mean, hey, I'm allowed to say that. I voted for the guy. Sorry.
I really don't have much of an opinion on him, to be honest with you,
Me,
because I
it's
can't
like
tell.
as much as he does good, I just wish he would get off Twitter.
Yeah, well, he's so connected with that. It's kind of hard for him to do that.
Yeah, I know. That's like you are potential, or you have the potential to be so much more, dude. If you would just stop tweeting.
Yeah, he likes getting rouses out of people, though. You know.
Yes, he does, and that works. Or there's a journalist guy, Ben Shapiro. He says it perfectly. Trump is like a hammer. Sometimes he hits a nail, sometimes he hits a baby.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. But anyway, moving on. Let's move on from that.
Yeah. So, now that we're on to like Universal monsters and stuff like that, what was your opinion of The Mummy with Tom Cruise?
I honestly haven't seen that movie yet, but I heard it bombed and whatnot, and I'm like, well, I would have to see it in order to really give an opinion on it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there are trusted people that I know that said that movie was god awful, but it's like I still would have to see it for myself.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I do for my channel is like, I am not telling people whether or not to see a movie. I will never do that. What I will do is I will say, watch the movie yourself. Tell me what you think about it. I will never tell a person, do not watch this movie.
Oh,
I will
say
whether or not I want to watch it, or I will or will not watch it.
Right. And that's the same with me. I never, on this channel, I will never tell someone not to buy something or to buy something.
Yeah.
I will always
recommend and not recommend.
Yeah, it's up to you. It's your money. You can spend how you want. But no, wait, that movie, I saw it. I'm not really going to spoil anything for you. It's one of those things where maybe if Tom Cruise didn't have so much of a pull, it might have done better, but I don't know. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, I don't mind spoilers here and there, but if I remember correctly, doesn't it kind of take place in modern day?
It takes place in modern day, but the thing, and this is without spoilers, it kind of focuses too much on Tom Cruise and not enough on the subject at hand.
Yeah, well, he is a show stealer.
Well, yeah, that was the thing. He pretty much took over the behind the scenes thing and kind of made it more about him. And it, I'll put it to you that way.
Probably why the movie died.
Yeah, because it was very ambitious what they were trying to do in the movie and what
into a new universe.
Yeah, with all the Universal monsters that they were going to introduce, and it just kind of went blah. I could see what they were trying to do, but it just went blah. That's all.
Tried to take flight and it fell after 2 wing beats. Yeah,
pretty much. But I appreciate what they were trying to do. I really did, because I always thought that's a cool concept, and you've seen that kind of thing being tried before, where they wanted to do the Invisible Man movie that's going to be coming out. That's actually a bit different than what the original movie was, but this one's more. He's pretty much stalking his girlfriend, kind of thing. It's like, okay, that's not that interesting to me. That's more of a thriller. That's not like the original.
Horror.
Like, So
I liked the Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins and Emily Blunt in The Wolfman. Now, the theatrical version is good. It's decent. this is the one time that I thought an extended edition did not help the movie,
Okay.
because in the extended edition, Emily Blunt visits Benicio del Toro to tell her about his brother, who was killed by a creature, or who was killed on the moor,
Right.
or Blackmoor.
Right.
And he then goes, and in the theatrical, he gets a telegram from her, and he goes home. But
Right.
when he gets there in the extended edition, he gets back to his house and his father and whatnot. He says, "I got a letter from his widow," and it's like, "She visited you." What?
Yeah.
And you realize
So
they never. That one was it. The extended edition didn't do it right.
no, it didn't. And I think it's funny how Anthony Hopkins is in that, and then he was in Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh yeah,
With Reeves. So it's like, because that's the first thing I saw when I saw the casting. I'm like, oh, Anthony Hopkins. It's like he's almost part of the whole, Dracula. Here's the werewolf, and then all that stuff. And it's like, oh wait, he is the werewolf.
and one of the cool things is Anthony Hopkins actually did the prosthetic, or got into the prosthetics for the werewolf, or for the Wolfman. Because if you look at the Anthony Hopkins werewolf, he looks like Anthony Hopkins. You can see it through the makeup. Where with the Benicio del Toro, you can't really see or you can't really see him through it. But Anthony Hopkins, you can easily, and it's like, holy shit. And I absolutely love how he played his character, how he played the father, and where his son,
Yes.
Wait, what'd you say about your wife?
You cut out there.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
but yeah,
no, I was saying, like, my wife and I watched it.
Nice. Still there? Well, let me check my internet.
No, what I'm saying is, a delay, or there's like a delay. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a slight delay because there is a hiccup in the. Let me look outside. Yeah, the weather is kind of picking up a little bit. Definitely going to have to go out and shovel a little tomorrow. But one of the cool things about Anthony Hopkins in that movie is he truly plays a psychopath. I mean, Anthony Hopkins can truly play a psychopath like the best of them.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's very good at it.
He played Hannibal Lecter very well, but then when he plays the father, and he shoots the guy's hand or whatnot, he's like, "Damn it, tell me!" He's like, "Tell you to get off, or you better get off my land." And also, my Sikh servant is a crack shot with a repeating rifle, and this, that. And next time I will not be so civil. And oh my gosh, it's like he is just so freaking crazy and good at acting. And then when he is all serious with it, or when his son is going to kill him and whatnot, he's like, "Let the beast come free." And he has the rifle and he has the shells and whatnot. And he's like, pulls the trigger, and he's like, "Very proud of you, Lawrence, but I took the silver out of those shells a long time ago."
Yeah.
It's like, it took you a lot of bravery to do what you just did.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, man, it was just well done.
Yeah. Now my question then is, do you think at the end the detective will change because he got bitten, but he's still alive?
He got bit. he got bit.
Yeah.
And when she killed, or there are actually multiple endings to the movie where she actually gets bit by, or she lets Lawrence bite her as the Wolfman, and then she pulls the trigger. There's also the ending where she doesn't get the shot off and he kills her, and then and it does a close up to him, and then that fades or cuts to black, and then the normal ending. I mean, there's just so many freaking endings, and it's like, I think they did the right one, but I would have or liked the one where, or I would have actually added on to the ending that they did, where she kills him before he can bite her, but then she has another silver bullet left, and she sees the detective, which is played by Agent Smith himself, and she's like, points the gun at him, pulls the trigger. He would have turned into a beast, just like, and then she explains it. He was infected too, basically. Yeah. But and, leaves it open and ambiguous.
Yeah. See, I always liked, like Underworld and all that. I always liked the werewolf story because there's some tragedy to it too, because it's not like they want to do this. It's something against their will. And yet when the full moon changes, they have no choice. And there's something sympathetic about with werewolves where vampires are very much like portrayed as evil, pretty much giving in right into
giving into the evil.
Yeah. Whereas werewolves, they're almost like a tragic character where they can't help themselves. They want to, but killing themselves. Yeah. They can't. Yeah.
I mean, there's some who can fight, or there are those with a very strong will that can fight that side of them to a degree, but still they can't hold it back indefinitely.
Yeah. You ever see the one with Jack Nicholson?
Wolf.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a good one. I really like that one.
I remember that. I can go on with that one too. Frickin' David Spade did such a psychotic job in that one too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I love when Jack Nicholson is peeing on his shoe and he's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm marking my territory."
Exactly.
That's great. I was like, "That's great."
And then he finds out that he goes to his house, sees David Spade there, and he's like, "I need to talk to my wife." And David Spade grabs him. And that's when he bites him, and then you see him just running up the stairs like a wolf. And it's like, that almost reminds me, the effects that they did for that almost reminded me of the gargoyle from Ghostbusters, how it ran.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's like, I think it was stop motion and such, but it was different, obviously, with Nicholson. But then it gets up there and sees she's kind of dressed really down with her clothing, and it's like, yep,
what's happening?
They're having an affair and whatnot, and then she turns up. I think she ended up turning up dead.
Yeah, and they think he did it, but then you realize that because he did David Spade's character.
Yeah, and he was, oh my god! When he became a freaking werewolf, he just got super sexual with frickin' Michelle Pfeiffer. He's like, "How about my fucking you to death, my dear?" And she's like, "No, I'd have to try it first."
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell, man?
Yeah. It's kind of funny because, when I first saw that movie, I was kind of little, and I'm like, "Oh, it's the Joker and Catwoman."
Exactly. It's like, holy crap. But there was also, or one of the cool things I saw in that movie, he thinks he hit the wolf, which I think he kind of did hit it. but
Yeah.
I don't. Or the wolf, or the way that he reacts. He gets down, he looks at the wolf, and then he kind of just cowers and puts his hands up like he's scared. And then he looks back, or as he's looking away like that, the wolf opens its eye, looks at him, and then closes it again. And then he's going to try dragging it to the side of the road, and that's when it sprang up and bit him and whatnot.
Right.
And you find out later after he kills what's his name with it, or after he kills David Spader's character, or Spade's character, he runs off into the woods, and I believe he actually turns into a wolf.
Yeah, an actual wolf. Yeah.
Yeah, an actual wolf, because you see, or because of Michelle Pfeiffer sleeping with Jack Nicholson, she kind of gets infected too.
Yeah.
And
Because her eyes turn at the end, and also
her eyes start to react to the
and
moon.
also she even says, like, to the detective, "I can smell you down that way," or
She's like,
so,
yeah, he's like, "Can I get you something to drink? Maybe another gin and tonic and whatnot." And he's like, no. And he's like, the other one goes, "How the hell does she know what we've been drinking?" And he says it quietly, and she's like, "Because I could smell it. I could smell it a mile away." And then it shows a close up of her eyes, then his human eyes, and then a wolf. And it pulls away of that wolf howling, and it basically shows that that's basically going to be her fate as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's oh my gosh, there was a book that I read that was pretty interesting too.
Uh-huh.
It was about a woman who is a werewolf, and she locks herself in her basement every full moon, and she finds a guy that really likes her, and she likes him, but she's afraid to let him in and whatnot. And so she eventually, after a while of dating, she eventually decides to tell him the truth. And he at first doesn't believe it. He goes downstairs. He's looking at the basement where she locks herself in, finds some hair, pockets it in a thing, finds dog shit basically, and that's dried up, some scat, and he has it analyzed, and they're like, "Is this a joke? What did you bring me?" It's like, it's human and animal. He's like, "Holy shit." And there's a whole jealousy thing there. There's another woman that wants the same guy, and actually attacks her, and when she's trying to hold back turning into a freaking wolf, and then she accidentally turns into the wolf because the woman tries to shoot her and shit, and it's like too much for her to hold back anymore.
Right.
And a lot of people figure it out and whatnot. It's a great book. I can't even remember the damn name of it. It was great.
Do you know the concept of werewolf was also in Greek mythology?
Yes, lycanthropy has some origins in Greek myth, as does vampirism, so to speak, too.
Yeah. Well, do you know the myth of Lycan?
No, I do not know the full myth of Lycan, which is lichen, but I do know that it's connected to lichen. Yeah.
So, here's the story. It's an ancient Greek myth. So, Zeus is now ruler of all, and obviously the mortals pray to the gods. But one thing Zeus did not want is human sacrifices. Well, he gets word that there is a group of people that under a king named Lycan.
Mm-hmm.
And so he wants to find out if these rumors are true for himself. So he goes, disguised as a beggar, goes to the palace. And at first they don't want to let him in, but the Lycan, the king, he says, "Yes, let him in." So Lycan decides to test, because he thinks that it's Zeus, but he's not sure. So he wants to test if Zeus can that's really Zeus. So what he
Yep.
does is he actually kills his own grandchild, carves him up,
Oh,
and
shit.
roasts him. Well, then he also carves up a regular calf and carves it up, roasts it, and mixes the meats together. And he puts the food on the plate of Zeus, and he says, please eat, we welcome you here to your home. And he decides to mock Zeus even further by, saying, "Oh, this is for the gods, let us take part of this feast." And all the people are eating. And what happens is Zeus immediately knows what it is, and he's in utter disgust. All of a sudden,
Right.
Zeus then reveals his true form, but Lycan had been watching him, and when he starts to actually uh, become the Shining One, shining because that's what Zeus means,
Mhm.
Lycan flees, and Zeus decimates the entire palace. Well, Lycan flees, and he's trying to warn the other people that the gods are walking the earth. Well, he knocks on a door, and before he can say anything, he lets out a howl, and suddenly he notices that his hands now have fur. He starts to growl, snarl, and here he changes into a wolf. As
Zeus cursed him.
punishment, yes, as punishment, Zeus made him exactly what he was, which was a cannibal, but he made him into a wolf as
Mhm.
punishment, and he is to walk the earth the rest of his life as a wolf.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, one of the things that the gods absolutely love to do when they lay curses is to transmogrify or transform people. I mean,
hmm
we all know the story of Arachne and
oh yeah,
Athena,
yep,
which also takes place in my book, but in a different form.
oh
Everybody, or the original one, is where Arachne challenges Athena to a sewing contest, so to speak, and loses, and therefore she is transformed into a spider.
right,
Now, the story that I did was Arachne was a devoted servant of Athena,
hmm
and she wanted to make, or she knew that Athena was coming down from Olympus to see her subjects in Athens. So she made a tapestry. She wove a tapestry of such perfection that when it was presented to Athena, Athena grew jealous that
yeah,
she had, or that a mortal had made something of such perfection. So
right,
instead of being, or having gratitude, Athena cursed her and
yeah,
turned her not into just a simple spider, but into a very hideous creature that was half human, or torso of a human and back end of a spider with 8 legs in the abdomen and all that
right,
and whatnot. And I actually had uh, mock-ups and or seen concept arts of human spider thingies, and it's
yeah,
like that could have been her in the book. I mean, it was
yeah,
great because Arachne is in the story
right,
because she's actually a protector, so to speak, in the first book of Decastus and Artemis's child.
oh
Because in the book, when they have sex the second time, that's when the child is conceived.
right,
Or actually, no, it is the first time. The second time, they didn't know she was, or Artemis didn't know she was pregnant. But the child also ages rapidly, sort of, or kind of ages rapidly because of the power that the child has as well.
right,
I mean, this whole series that I created, there's consequences to broken oaths, and one of the consequences is a wrathful, or is basically the wrath of broken oaths. I can't remember what it's called though, but I did use it in the book. I made mention of it it's something that's so feared that not even the gods will speak its name.
Oh,
And And it's actually something that the gods do not speak of, because to speak of it gives it power.
right.
And Artemis eventually in the series would lose her powers because of her breaking her oath. It would take time, but she would eventually lose her powers and become mortal.
Oh,
And
okay.
because she had broken a maiden's oath. She was a maiden goddess. That was one of
Right.
the oldest. That was one of the oldest oaths that a god or goddess can take. And have you ever heard of the Temesian fox?
I
It is
heard. Yes, I heard the name, but I'm trying to remember the actual.
The myth is basically it is a beast that not even Artemis herself could capture. It is the ever elusive prey, basically.
Yeah.
Now, basically, what I would bring in the Temesian fox, and later on at the end or the epilogue of the whole series, because I have this all visualized and whatnot in my head. I mean, Typhon would be in this series. All sorts of freaking monsters, titans, and gods are in this series.
Right.
But yeah, at the end, when everything is said and done and peace is finally brokered and whatnot, the daughter of Decastus and Artemis, because Artemis is sick as a mortal, she becomes sick while she's a mortal, and her daughter catches the Temesian fox.
Oh.
And to those who catch the Temesian fox, you are granted a wish, one wish. And she wishes her mother's god status be restored.
Right.
She doesn't wish for anything, or she doesn't wish for anything greedy. She actually wishes for a selfless act.
Right.
And she wished her mom to be restored, and it's a pretty touching little moment.
Right. Yeah.
But the way that she catches the Temesian fox is she doesn't really catch it, she befriends it.
Ah.
And that is when the Temesian fox, because I actually planned on changing it a little bit to the befriending, because originally she captures it within a net.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, that is a little bit too kind of generic. So by befriending it, it's the Temesian fox's choice to grant a wish. And while visiting her mother with the fox notices Artemis is sick, and she also knows who Artemis is, and Artemis is shocked to see the fox and whatnot. And the fox goes up to her and glows the color of moonlight, and it then the moonlit glow transfers into Artemis, and she is miraculously healed, kind of like a Jesus thing. But she looks at the fox when she has her godly or her revived form. She looks at the fox and just nods, and her daughter is kind of shocked. She's like, what just happened? And the fox runs off, never to be seen again, because it is now has to be hunted again.
Right.
And she's like, or she explains to her daughter that the Temesian fox has a purpose if it is caught. And even though you befriended it, in a way, you captured it. You captured its heart, its feelings, you captured its friendship. So in a way, she captured the fox. She did what no other person, either god or mortal or even titan, was able to do.
Right.
And that is why it was so relevant and whatnot. And it's like, that is a touching thing. Now, the whole wish fulfillment thing, I do not think belongs to the actual myth of the fox. It's just a fox that has never been captured.
Right.
And it's
That's
a very
cool.
interesting thing.
Yeah, it's a very cool concept. I really like that.
Yep.
Anyway, I see we're at the 3 hour mark here, so we're probably gonna have to wrap it up here.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, as a courtesy, why don't you announce your channel and your Twitter here, and before we sign
All right.
off, so that way people can try to subscribe to you.
Yep. I am Orange Hat Reviews. Same name on Twitter as well. I do movie reviews, show reviews, TV or entertainment news. I cover the controversial. I do not shill. I do not do cancel culture. I do 3 different types of reviews: objective, subjective, and moviegoer. And if you guys want to follow me or subscribe to me, I am very grateful. I do milestone videos for when I reach major subscriber milestones. And basically, I do my best to upload at least once or twice a day, sometimes every other day, because right now life is kind of hectic. But yeah, I do all sorts of entertainment stuff. So check me out on YouTube.
Alrighty. And then as far as my announcement goes, one of the things I wanted to say to everybody is the fact that I just passed my permit for my CDL license. So this means I'm actually going to be going to trucking school, and I'll be there for at least 2 weeks. And then I might be on the road as soon as the next day after. So I'm not sure when I'll be posting it again, but this was kind of like more of a farewell live stream. I wanted to share it with Orange Hat here, and I'm very grateful that he was able to come on. He's a good friend, and I really always want to support his channel, and he comes on and helps me support mine. So I really appreciate it, Orange Hat.
Anytime, man.
Thank you. But anyway, thanks, appreciate it. But anyway, this is GFan84 and Orange Hat Reviews here, and we will see you again. Well, I'm not sure when I'll see you again, but don't worry, I'll be around. If not on YouTube, I'll be on Twitter. So,
yep. Take it easy, folks.
Have a good night.
Mm-hmm. And